Say goodbye, cripple. Brandon's voice cut through the morning air as he shoved 8-year-old Lily Harper toward the edge of Miller's quarry. Her small fingers clawed at nothing. The wheelchair tipped. 100 feet of jagged rock waited below. For months they called her Broken Doll. They dumped trash on her head. They spat in her lunch. But attempted murder, no one saw that coming. Just as gravity claimed her, 2 Hell's Angels exploded from the tree-line engines, screaming like war itself. What happened next would expose the darkest secret Copper Valley had ever buried. If you want to see justice satisfyingly served, subscribe now and stay until the very end. Drop a comment telling us which city you're watching from. Let's see how far Lily's story travels today. The wheelchair hit the tile floor with a sound that echoed through the entire hallway of Copper Valley Elementary. Lily Harper didn't scream. She'd learned months ago that screaming only made them laugh harder. Oops. Brandon Sterling stood over her, his 12-year-old frame casting a shadow across her crumpled body. Looks like the broken doll fell off her shelf again. Lily's palms burned where they'd slapped against the cold floor. She was 8 years old, small for her age, with blonde hair that her mother still braided every morning because it was the one normal thing they had left. Her legs hadn't worked in 2 years. Not since the accident. Not since her father died. Pick it up. Brandon kicked her backpack, sending it spinning across the hallway. Papers scattered. A photograph slid out and landed face up near his expensive sneakers. Brandon's eyes lit up. He snatched it before Lily could react. Well, well, well. He held the photo high, showing his sister Madison and 2 other kids who'd gathered to watch. Look at this. Daddy and his little cripple. How sweet. Give it back, Lily's voice cracked. Please. Please, Brandon mimicked her in a high-pitched whine. Please, did your daddy say please before he got drunk and fell off the cliff like the loser he was? Something inside Lily's chest cracked. Not broke. Cracked. Like ice on a frozen pond, ready to give way. My father wasn't drunk. Brandon laughed. Sure he wasn't. That's why they found whiskey bottles in his truck, right? That's why he walked right off Miller's Edge like a stumbling idiot. He didn't. My dad says your dad was a troublemaker. Brandon leaned down, his breath hot on her face. Said he got what was coming to him. Madison giggled behind her brother. She was 10, pretty the way mean girls are pretty, with perfect teeth and eyes like a snake. Maybe it runs in the family, Brandon. Maybe she wants to fly off a cliff, too. The hallway had filled with students now. 30, maybe 40 kids all watching. Some looked uncomfortable. Most looked away. A few smiled, relieved it wasn't them. Mr. Patterson walked by. The vice principal glanced at the scene at Lily on the floor, at Brandon holding her photograph. Then he checked his watch and kept walking. Mr. Patterson, Lily called out. Mr. Patterson, please. He didn't turn around. Brandon grinned. See that nobody cares about you, broken doll. Not the teachers, not the principal, not anybody. He held the photograph over her head, just out of reach. You know what, I think I'll keep this. Add it to my collection. No. Lily lunged forward, but without her wheelchair she couldn't stand. Her legs dragged uselessly behind her. She fell again, chin hitting the floor hard enough to make her taste copper. Madison laughed so hard she snorted. Look at her crawling like a bug. A broken bug, Brandon corrected. He tucked the photograph into his jacket pocket and patted it. Thanks for the gift, freak. See you at lunch. He stepped over her like she was garbage. The crowd dispersed. One by one, the other students walked away, some stepping around her, some stepping over her. Nobody helped. Nobody asked if she was okay. Nobody said a word. Lily lay there, cheek pressed against the cold tile, watching their shoes pass. 37 pairs of shoes. She counted every single one. The nurse's office smelled like bandages and lies. Mrs. Chen, the school nurse, dabbed at Lily's split chin with antiseptic while clicking her tongue in what was supposed to be sympathy. "Another fall, sweetie?" "I didn't fall. The tile floors can be so slippery. You really need to be more careful." "I didn't fall." Lily's voice hardened. "Brandon Sterling pushed me out of my wheelchair." Mrs. Chen's hand paused, just for a second. Then she resumed dabbing. "That's a very serious accusation, Lily." "It's not an accusation. It happened. There were like 40 kids who saw it. I'm sure you think you saw. I was there. It happened to me." Mrs. Chen set down the antiseptic. She looked at Lily with something that might have been pity, might have been warning. "Lily, the Sterling family has done so much for this school. The new gymnasium, the computer lab, the scholarship fund. Sometimes children misinterpret." He called my dad a drunk. He said he got what was coming to him. He stole my photograph. "I think maybe you're just emotional right now. It's understandable, given everything you've been through." Mrs. Chen pulled off her latex gloves with 2 efficient snaps. "I'll call your mother to pick you up early. How does that sound?" "It sounds like you're not going to do anything." Mrs. Chen didn't answer. Grace Harper arrived at the school 45 minutes later, still wearing her diner uniform. She smelled like coffee and bacon grease, and she was the most beautiful thing Lily had ever seen. "Baby." Grace dropped to her knees and wrapped her arms around her daughter. "Baby, I'm so sorry. I came as fast as I could." "Mama, I know. Grace pulled back and examined Lily's bandaged chin. Her eyes went dark. "Who did this? Brandon Sterling." Grace's jaw tightened. "The same boy from last time?" "Yes, ma'am." "And the time before that?" "Yes, ma'am." Grace stood up slowly. She was a small woman, barely 5'3", worn thin by double shifts and single motherhood. But right now, standing in that nurse's office, she looked like a giant. "Where's the principal?" Mrs. Chen's eyes widened. "Mrs. Harper, I really don't think that's 'where is the principal?' Her office is down the hall, but I should tell you that Mrs. Patterson is very busy, and..." Grace was already walking. Principal Rebecca Patterson had the kind of face that looked like it was carved from cold butter, smooth, pale, and fundamentally slippery. She sat behind her massive desk with her fingers steepled, letting Grace Harper's words wash over her like water off a duck's back. "Mrs. Harper, I understand you're upset. My daughter was assaulted." That's a very strong word. "It's the right word. Brandon Sterling threw her out of her wheelchair in front of 40 students. He stole a photograph of her deceased father. He told her that her father got what was coming to him." Principal Patterson's expression didn't change. "Children say things they don't mean. He's 12 years old. He knows exactly what he means. I've spoken with Brandon. He tells me it was an accident. He was walking past, bumped her chair by mistake, and she fell. He feels terrible about it." Grace laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. "An accident. That's what you're going with, Mrs. Harper. This is the 4th time this month. 4th time. Last week, Madison Sterling poured chocolate milk on Lily's head and told her she looked like a drowning rat. The week before that, Brandon shoved her into the boys' bathroom and locked the door. She was trapped in there for 45 minutes before a janitor heard her crying. All of those incidents were investigated, and nothing happened. Grace leaned forward. Nothing ever happens when it's the Sterling kids. Why is that, Principal Patterson? Is it because Richard Sterling paid for your new gymnasium? Is it because his wife chairs the school board? Is it because this whole town is so deep in that family's pocket that you can't see daylight anymore? Principal Patterson's eyes went cold. I'm going to pretend you didn't just say that. I'm going to pretend you give a damn about my daughter. Mrs. Harper. The principal stood. I've been very patient with you. I understand that Lily has challenges. I understand that losing your husband has been difficult for your family. But I cannot allow you to come into my school and make baseless accusations against students from respected families simply because your daughter has trouble fitting in. Grace went very still. Trouble fitting in. Some children struggle socially, especially children with disabilities. They misread situations. They feel persecuted when really, my daughter is being tortured. Your daughter is struggling to adjust. There's a difference. And what's your solution? What are you doing to protect her? Principal Patterson smiled thinly. We've assigned her a buddy, a 6th grader who checks in with her at lunch. We've moved her locker closer to the main office. We're doing everything we can within reason. Within reason. Grace repeated the words like they were poison. Within reason. Now I have a meeting in 10 minutes. If there's nothing else, there's going to be something else. Grace's voice dropped low. One day something terrible is going to happen to my daughter because you were too cowardly to stop it. And when it does, I want you to remember this moment. I want you to remember that you could have done something, and you chose not to. Principal Patterson's smile flickered, just for a moment. Then it hardened again. Good day, Mrs. Harper. That night, in their small house on the edge of town, Lily sat at the kitchen table while her mother made dinner. The photograph was gone. Her chin hurt. Her heart hurt worse. Mama, yes, baby, did Daddy really drink? Grace's hand froze over the pot of pasta. She didn't turn around. Who told you that? Brandon. He said they found whiskey bottles in Daddy's truck. Grace turned off the stove. She walked to the table and sat down across from her daughter. She took both of Lily's small hands in her own. Your father drank exactly 1 beer on our wedding day. 1 beer in his entire adult life. He didn't like the taste. Then why did they find? Because somebody put them there. Lily felt the world tilt sideways. What? I'm going to tell you something, baby. Something I maybe should have told you a long time ago. Grace's voice was steady, but her hands were shaking. Your daddy didn't fall off that cliff by accident. What do you mean? I mean your father was investigating something. Something big. Something dangerous. Grace squeezed Lily's hands. He worked at Sterling Quarry for 15 years. In the last few months before he died, he started noticing things. Workers getting sick. Strange chemicals being dumped at night. He kept a journal. A journal. He was gathering evidence. He was going to take it to the authorities. And then 2 days before he was supposed to meet with investigators from the state, he went off that cliff. Lily's heart was pounding so loud she could hear it in her ears. Mama, are you saying? I'm saying your father was murdered, baby. Grace's voice cracked. And I can't prove it. Not yet. But I know it in my soul. Mr. Sterling, Lily whispered. Brandon's dad. I don't know for sure. I've never been able to prove anything. The journal went missing after the accident. The investigators said it was an open and shut case. Drunk man falls off cliff. End of story. But it's not the end. No, baby, it's not. Grace wiped her eyes. Now you know why they hate you. Now you know why they want you gone. You're Samuel Harper's daughter, and as long as you're here, you're a reminder of what they did. Lily was quiet for a long time. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the windows of their old house. Mama, yes, baby, I'm not going anywhere. Grace looked at her daughter. Really looked at her. And for the first time in 2 years, she saw something besides grief in those young eyes. She saw fire. The next morning, Lily wheeled herself to school with her chin held high. The bruise on her face had turned purple overnight, a badge of war that she wore without shame. Other students stared as she passed. She stared right back. Brandon was waiting by her locker. "Heard your mommy made a scene yesterday." He picked at his fingernails like he was bored. "That wasn't very smart. Smart would be you leaving me alone." Brandon's eyebrows shot up. "Excuse me, you heard me." Lily opened her locker, ignoring the way her hands wanted to shake. "I'm done being your punching bag." Brandon laughed. "Oh, this is good. The broken doll grew a spine." He leaned in close. "Let me tell you how this works, freak. My family owns this town. My father could have your mother fired from that pathetic diner with one phone call. He could have you both on the street by Christmas. You want to play tough, go ahead. See what happens. Your father is a murderer." The words came out before Lily could stop them. Brandon's face went white. Actually, white. Like all the blood had drained out of it. "What did you just say?" "You heard me." Brandon grabbed the front of her shirt and yanked her forward. Her wheelchair rolled toward him, and suddenly they were face to face, his breath hot on her skin. "You better watch your mouth, cripple. You better watch it real careful. Or what, you'll push me off a cliff, too." Something flickered in Brandon's eyes. Something that looked almost like fear. "You don't know what you're talking about. I know more than you think." "Hey!" a voice boomed down the hallway. "Get your hands off her." Brandon released Lily so fast she nearly fell backward. They both turned to see Mr. Pete, the elderly janitor, marching toward them with a mop in his hand like it was a weapon. "What's going on here?" "Nothing." Brandon smoothed his jacket. "We were just talking." "Didn't look like talking to me, Mr. Pete positioned himself between Brandon and Lily. He was 70 years old, stooped and gray, but his eyes were sharp. "Why don't you run along to class, son?" "Don't call me son. I'll call you whatever I want. Now move." Brandon's face twisted with rage. "You're going to regret this, old man. Your father can kiss my rusty tailpipe. Get to class." For a moment, it looked like Brandon might actually take a swing at the janitor. Then Madison appeared at his elbow, tugging his sleeve. "Come on, Brandon. He's not worth it." Brandon pointed at Lily. "This isn't over, freak. Not by a long shot." He walked away with his sister, looking back twice to make sure Lily knew he meant it. Mr. Pete let out a long breath. "You okay, sweetheart?" "I'm okay." Lily's voice was steadier than she felt. "Thank you. That boy's been trouble since he was in diapers. His whole family's trouble." Mr. Pete lowered his voice. "I knew your father." Lily's heart skipped. "You did? Worked with him at the quarry before I moved over here. Good man. Real good man." Mr. Pete glanced around to make sure no one was listening. "He didn't drink, you know. Never touched the stuff." "I know. There's a lot of people in this town who know. A lot of people who've been waiting for someone to tell the truth." Mr. Pete patted her shoulder. "You be careful, little one. And you come find me if those kids give you any more trouble." "Mr. Pete, yeah. What really happened to my father?" The old janitor's face went sad. "I wish I could tell you, sweetheart. I really do. But some secrets in this town are buried so deep, even the dirt is afraid to talk." The cafeteria was a war zone waiting to happen. Lily wheeled herself through the lunch line, hyper-aware of every eye on her, every whisper behind her back. She selected her food mechanically, a sandwich, an apple, a carton of milk, and paid with the free lunch card that was just another reminder of how far her family had fallen. Every table was full. Every table except one. In the corner near the emergency exit sat a single empty table. It was where Lily always sat, where she'd sat every day for the past year. The table reserved for kids nobody wanted to be seen with. She wheeled toward it. "Hold up." A girl stepped into her path. Sarah Chen, the nurse's daughter, pretty popular and normally invisible to Lily's existence. "You're Lily, right? The girl Brandon Sterling was messing with this morning." Lily braced herself. "Yeah. That took guts. What you said to him?" Lily blinked. "What? Standing up to him like that? Everyone's talking about it." Sarah shifted her. "Look, I know we've never really talked before, but my table has an empty seat if you want." Lily didn't know what to say. She'd spent so long being invisible that being seen felt almost painful. "Why?" she finally asked. "Why now?" Sarah's expression flickered. "Because my grandmother died last year. From cancer. And before she died, she told me something." She lowered her voice. "She told me the water in this town made her sick. And she wasn't the only one. The water from Sterling Quarry." "Shh." Sarah glanced around. "Not here. But if you want to know more, meet me by the bleachers after school. And bring anything your dad might have left behind." Before Lily could respond, Sarah walked away, disappearing into the crowd like the conversation never happened. Lily sat at her usual table alone. But for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel quite so isolated. The afternoon dragged like a wounded animal. Lily sat through math class, through science class, through history class, barely hearing a word the teacher said. Her mind was spinning. Sarah Chen. The water. Her father's journal that her mother said went missing. What if it wasn't missing? What if it was hidden? She was so lost in thought that she didn't notice Brandon Sterling slide into the desk behind her in history class. She didn't notice Madison and two other boys take seats nearby. She didn't notice the trap closing around her until it was too late. "Mrs. Whitmore!" Brandon raised his hand, his voice dripping with false concern. "I think Lily might be sick. She's been twitching and making weird faces all period." The teacher turned. "Lily, are you all right?" Every eye in the classroom swiveled toward her. "I'm fine." Lily's face burned. "I wasn't twitching." "She does it all the time," Madison piped up. "It's probably a spaz thing. You know, because of her legs." Nervous laughter rippled through the room. "That's enough," Mrs. Whitmore said, but her voice was weak. "Brandon, Madison, please don't." "I'm just worried about her," Brandon said. "Maybe she needs special supervision. Maybe she shouldn't be in regular classes with normal kids." "Yeah," one of the boys chimed in. "What if she freaks out and runs over someone with her wheelchair?" The laughter was louder now. Crueler. Lily gripped the armrests of her chair. "Don't cry. Don't cry. Don't give them the satisfaction." "Actually," Brandon continued, "I heard her mom came to school yesterday and made a big scene, accused my father of all kinds of stuff. My dad says she's mentally unstable. Maybe it runs in the family." "Brandon Sterling." Mrs. Whitmore's voice had finally found some steel. "One more word, and you're going to the principal's office." "Fine." Brandon leaned back in his chair with a smirk. "I was just trying to help." The bell rang. Students poured out of the classroom, and Lily waited until most of them were gone before she started to wheel herself toward the door. She'd almost made it when a foot shot out and caught the wheel of her chair. She spun sideways, crashing into a desk. "Oops," Brandon's voice came from behind her. "You really should be more careful." Lily didn't turn around. She didn't give him the satisfaction of seeing her eyes filling with tears. She just wheeled out the door and didn't stop until she reached the girls' bathroom, where she locked herself in a stall and cried until she had nothing left. At 3:15, Lily made her way to the bleachers. The football field was empty, except for a few kids walking toward the parking lot. Sarah Chen was already there, sitting on the lowest row with her backpack on her lap. "You came." Sarah looked relieved. "I wasn't sure you would." "I almost didn't." Lily wheeled up beside her. "I thought it might be a trap, something Brandon set up." "I get it, but I promise this is real." Sarah pulled out a folder from her backpack. "My grandmother kept records. Medical records, water testing results, newspaper clippings from before they could be buried. She gave them to me before she died. Told me to wait for the right person." "Why me?" "Because your father was trying to tell the same story, and they killed him for it." Lily's breath caught. "You believe he was murdered?" "Lily." Sarah's voice was gentle but firm. "Half the town believes it. They're just too scared to say it out loud. The Sterlings own everything: the quarry, the bank, the town council. When your dad started asking questions, people warned him to stop. He didn't listen." "That sounds like my dad." "It sounds like someone brave." Sarah handed her the folder. "This is everything my grandmother collected. It's not enough to prove anything on its own. But if we could find your father's journal." "My mom said it went missing." "Missing doesn't mean gone." Sarah leaned forward. "Think about it. Your dad was smart. He knew he was in danger. He wouldn't have kept his only copy somewhere obvious. He would have hidden it. Somewhere no one would think to look." Lily's mind raced. Where would her father hide something important? The house had been searched after his death. Her mother told her the police went through everything. The truck had been impounded. His office at the quarry was cleared out. But there was one place no one would have checked. "The garage," Lily whispered. "He had a workshop in the garage. He used to spend hours out there building stuff. Mom never goes in there anymore. Says it's too hard." "Then that's where we start." Sarah smiled. It was the first real smile anyone other than her mother had given Lily in months. "You didn't think I was going to make you do this alone, did you?" For a moment, Lily couldn't speak. The kindness was so unexpected, so overwhelming, that it felt like stepping into sunlight after years in the dark. "Why are you helping me?" she finally managed. "You don't even know me." "Because my grandmother told me that the worst thing good people can do is nothing." Sarah stood up and shouldered her backpack. "And because Brandon Sterling made my little brother cry 3 times this month. Someone needs to stop those people. Might as well be us." Lily felt something shift inside her chest. That crack from yesterday, the one that had formed when Brandon said her father got what was coming to him. It was still there. But now it was filling with something new. Not grief, not fear, purpose. The Harper garage hadn't been opened in 2 years. Grace kept the side door padlocked, and when Lily had asked about it once. Her mother's face had gone so pale that Lily never asked again. But tonight, with Sarah waiting at the end of the driveway, keeping watch, Lily picked the padlock with a bobby pin just like her father had taught her. "That's my girl," he used to say whenever she mastered a new skill. "Smart as a whip and twice as sharp." The door swung open with a creak. The smell hit her first. Sawdust and motor oil and something else, something that smelled like her father's shirts used to smell when he came home from work. Lily breathed it in, and for a moment he was there, standing beside his workbench, smiling. Then the moment passed, and she was alone. The workshop was exactly as he'd left it. Tools hanging on pegboards, half-finished projects scattered across the bench. A layer of dust over everything, like snow on a frozen landscape. Lily wheeled herself inside and began to search. She checked the drawers, the toolboxes, the cabinets. Nothing but screwdrivers and wrenches and drill bits. She ran her hands along the undersides of shelves looking for hidden compartments. She tapped on the walls listening for hollow spaces. Nothing. 20 minutes passed. 30. Sarah texted, "Everything okay?" Lily was about to give up when she noticed something. On the far wall behind a stack of old tires hung a framed photograph. It was a picture of Lily as a toddler, sitting on her father's shoulders, both of them laughing at something off camera. The frame was dusty, but the glass was clean, as if someone had touched it recently. Lily wheeled closer. She reached up and took the frame off the wall. Behind it, cut into the drywall, was a small hole. And inside the hole was a waterproof bag. Her hands shaking, Lily pulled out the bag and unzipped it. Inside was a leather-bound journal thick with pages, and taped to the front cover was a note in her father's handwriting. "For my Lily, if I can't be there to explain. The truth is here. All of it. I'm sorry I couldn't stop them. But maybe you can. I love you forever. Dad." Lily clutched the journal to her chest and wept. 3 hours later, Lily sat at the kitchen table with her mother, the journal open between them. Grace's hands trembled as she turned the pages. "He never told me where he hid it. He said the less I knew, the safer we'd be." "He knew." Lily's voice was hoarse from crying. "He knew they were going to kill him." "He suspected." Grace wiped her eyes. "But he couldn't stop. He said there were children getting sick, families losing everything. He said he had to do something." The journal was filled with her father's neat handwriting. Dates, locations, chemical names, witness statements. Maps of the quarry showing where illegal dumping had occurred. Photographs of barrels being loaded onto trucks in the middle of the night. And names. Richard Sterling, Mayor Tom Harrison, Police Chief Wayne Brooks. All of them involved. All of them guilty. "This is enough," Grace whispered. "This is enough to bring them all down." "Then why didn't he?" Lily asked. "If he had all this, why didn't he go to the FBI or someone outside town?" Grace turned to the last page of the journal. Her breath caught. There in her father's handwriting was a date circled 3 times March 15th, the day before he died. And underneath it, a single sentence, "Meeting with federal investigators tomorrow. Finally, this ends." "He was going to give them everything," Grace said. "He was one day away from exposing it all. And they killed him to stop it." "Yes." Grace closed the journal gently. "But they didn't know about this. They didn't know he made a copy." Mother and daughter looked at each other across the table. Outside, the wind had picked up again, and somewhere in the distance, a dog was howling. "What do we do now?" Lily asked. "Now." Grace's jaw set. "Now we finish what your father started." But finishing it would prove harder than either of them imagined. The next morning, Lily woke to find her mother standing at the front window, face-pale, phone clutched in her hand. "What's wrong?" That was Mr. Pete. Grace's voice was flat. "He was fired this morning. They said he was stealing supplies, but everyone knows it's because he stood up to Brandon yesterday. They can't do that. They can do whatever they want, baby. That's the point." Lily wheeled herself to the window. On the street outside, a black SUV was parked at the curb. It hadn't been there last night. "Mama, who's in that car?" Grace didn't answer for a long moment. Then, "I don't know, but they've been there since before dawn." They were being watched. The Sterlings knew something was happening. They might not know about the journal yet, but they knew Lily and Grace were becoming problems. And in Copper Valley, problems had a way of disappearing. "We need help," Grace said quietly. "We can't do this alone." "Who's going to help us? The police are in Sterling's pocket. The mayor, the school, everyone." "Not everyone." Grace turned from the window. There was something in her eyes that Lily had never seen before. Fear, yes, but also determination. There's a group that's been asking questions about Sterling Quarry. Outsiders. They came through town about a month ago asking about environmental violations. The sheriff ran them off, but they've been seen around the area. Watching. What kind of group? Bikers. Grace almost smiled at the look on Lily's face. I know what you're thinking, but these aren't ordinary bikers. The waitress at the diner, Molly, she talked to one of them. Said they were asking about chemical dumping, about people getting sick. Said they seemed like they actually cared. Bikers who care about the environment. Bikers who might have a reason to want the Sterlings brought down. Grace grabbed her keys from the hook by the door. Get dressed. We're going to the diner. The Copper Valley Diner sat on the main highway, a silver bullet of a building that had been serving truckers and travelers since 1962. Grace had worked there for 5 years, first as a waitress, now as the unofficial manager since the owner had gotten too old to run things herself. It was 10 a.m. on a Tuesday, which meant the breakfast rush was over, and the lunch crowd hadn't arrived. The only customers were 2 old men arguing about baseball in a corner booth, and Lily's breath caught. At the counter, nursing cups of coffee, sat 2 of the biggest men she'd ever seen. They wore leather vests covered in patches and pins. Their arms were sleeved with tattoos. One had a beard so thick it looked like a small animal had taken up residence on his face. The other was bald, with a scar running from his eyebrow to his jaw. They looked like the kind of men mothers warned their children about. But when the bearded one saw Lily wheel through the door, he smiled, and something about that smile made her feel inexplicably safe. Hey there, little one. His voice was like gravel wrapped in velvet. I remember you. You're the kid with the good manners, helped your mama clear tables last time I was here. Lily's mother stepped forward. I'm Grace Harper. This is my daughter, Lily. I know who you are. The bearded man extended a hand. Name's Thomas, but everyone calls me Tank. This ugly fellow next to me is William. Goes by Wrench. Charmed, Wrench said dryly. His voice was softer than Lily expected. I hear you've been asking questions about Sterling Quarry, Grace said. Tank and Wrench exchanged a look. Maybe we have, Tank said carefully. Why do you ask? Grace reached into her purse and pulled out the journal. She set it on the counter between them. Because my husband was murdered trying to expose what they're doing, and I think it's time someone finished his work. Tank picked up the journal. He opened it, scanned a few pages, and his expression darkened. Ma'am? He looked up at Grace with something like respect in his eyes. I think you better sit down. We've got a lot to talk about. The next 2 hours changed everything. Tank and Wrench weren't just bikers. They were former Marines who'd served 3 tours together in Afghanistan. When they came home, Tank discovered that his daughter, a girl named Emma, just a few years older than Lily, had been diagnosed with a rare form of cancer. The doctors traced it to environmental contamination, to water pollution from a quarry in their hometown. She died when she was 12, Tank said quietly. 12 years old. And by the time we figured out what had happened, the company that owned the quarry had buried everything, paid off inspectors, silenced witnesses. We couldn't touch them. So you became investigators, Lily said, understanding dawning. Something like that. Wrench spoke up for the first time in a while. We work with a network of people who've been hurt by companies like Sterling Quarry. Bikers mostly, but also lawyers, journalists, scientists. We gather evidence, build cases, and when we have enough, we make sure the right people see it. The FBI, Grace asked. Sometimes other agencies. Sometimes the media, Tank tapped the journal. But this is bigger than anything we've seen. Your husband documented years of illegal dumping. Names, dates, locations. If this is all verified, it could bring down not just Sterling but everyone who helped him cover it up. So what do we do? Tank looked at Lily. Really looked at her like he was seeing her for the first time. First, we keep you safe. The Sterlings know something's happening. That SUV outside your house, that's not a coincidence. They're watching you. They've been watching us for a while, Lily said. They just weren't sure what to watch for. Smart kid. Tank smiled. Here's what's going to happen. Wrench and I are going to stay in town for a while. We've got a few brothers coming in from out of state to help. We're going to keep an eye on you and your mama. And then we're going to take this journal to some people who can actually do something with it. But it's going to take time. The Sterlings have been at this for decades. They've got connections, money lawyers. We need to make sure when we strike, they can't wiggle out of it. Grace nodded slowly. How long? Weeks, maybe a month. Tank's expression was serious. Can you hold on that long? Grace looked at her daughter. Lily looked back. 2 years of grief. 2 years of being the town pariah. 2 years of watching the people who murdered her father walk around like kings. We've held on this long, Lily said. We can hold on a little longer. Tank grinned. That's the spirit, little one. He reached into his pocket and pulled out something small, a pin shaped like a pair of wings. This is a Valkyrie pin. You know what a Valkyrie is? Lily nodded. Norse mythology. They carried warriors to Valhalla. That's right. But do you know what else they did? Lily shook her head. They protected the innocent. Tank pressed the pin into her palm. You wear this and every brother in our club will know you're under our protection. Anyone messes with you, they mess with all of us. Lily looked down at the tiny wings. They felt heavier than they should. Thank you, she whispered. Don't thank me yet. Tank's smile faded. The hard part hasn't even started. He was right. The hard part came 3 days later when Lily arrived at school to find the entire building buzzing with barely suppressed excitement. Did you hear? Sarah met her at the front entrance, face pale. There's a field trip on Friday, the whole 4th grade. Field trip where? Sarah's expression was grim. Sterling Quarry. Sterling Quarry. The words hit Lily like a punch to the chest. That's where my father died, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Sarah nodded grimly. I know, and I don't think the timing is a coincidence. When was this announced? This morning. Principal Patterson made the announcement during homeroom, said it was an educational opportunity to learn about local industry and mining history. Sarah's voice dripped with sarcasm. She called it a gift from the Sterling family to the community. Lily's mind raced. 3 days after she found her father's journal. 3 days after Tank and Wrench showed up. 3 days after the Sterlings started watching her house. They knew something was happening. And this field trip was their response. I'm not going, Lily said. You have to. Sarah grabbed her arm. If you don't show up, they'll know you're scared. They'll know they're getting to you. And right now, that's the last thing you want them to think. Sarah, my father was murdered at that quarry. You want me to just roll up there like nothing happened? I want you to show them that they haven't broken you. Sarah's eyes were fierce. And I want to be there when you do. Before Lily could respond, a shadow fell across them both. Well, well, well. Brandon Sterling stood in the doorway, arms crossed, smirking like a cat that had cornered a mouse. Talking about the field trip, I heard you're coming, cripple. That's going to be fun. Get lost, Brandon. Oh, I will. But first I wanted to give you a preview. He leaned in close, voice dropping to a whisper that only Lily could hear. My dad's going to give the tour personally, and he's got a special surprise planned. Just for you. Lily's blood ran cold. What kind of surprise? Brandon just smiled. That cold, empty smile that never reached his eyes. Guess you'll have to wait and see. He walked away, whistling. Sarah stared after him with pure hatred in her eyes. I really hate that kid. Get in line, Lily muttered, but her hands were shaking, and she couldn't make them stop. That night she told Tank everything. They met at the diner after closing time, just Lily, her mother, Tank, and Wrench. The blinds were drawn, the lights were low, and the only sound was the hum of the refrigerator in the back. It's a trap, Tank said flatly. Has to be. Obviously it's a trap. Grace's voice was tight with fear. The question is what we do about it. She doesn't go, Wrench said. Simple as that. Call in sick. Say she's got the flu. And then what? Lily spoke up, surprising herself with the steadiness in her voice. They reschedule. Or they find another way to get to me. Running doesn't solve anything. Tank studied her with those sharp eyes. What are you thinking, little one? I'm thinking that they're expecting me to be scared. They're expecting me to hide. Lily lifted her chin. What if I don't? Lily, her mother started. No, Mama. Listen. Lily wheeled herself closer to the table. They've been bullying me for 2 years. They killed my father and got away with it. They think they're untouchable, but they're not. They're scared. That's why they're watching our house. That's why they're planning this field trip, because they know something's coming and they're trying to figure out what. She's not wrong, Tank said slowly. Scared people make mistakes. So what do you suggest? Grace asked. We let her walk into their trap and hope for the best. No, Tank's eyes glinted. We let her walk into their trap. But we spring one of our own. The plan came together over the next 2 hours. Tank had brothers positioned throughout the county. Some were former military. Some were federal contacts. All of them owed Tank favors, and all of them were ready to move when he gave the word. We've been building a case against Sterling for months, Tank explained. Your husband's journal is the missing piece, but we need more. We need Richard Sterling to incriminate himself. And what better place than the scene of the crime? You want to record him? Lily said, understanding dawning. I want to give him enough rope to hang himself. Tank pulled out a small device no bigger than a button. This is a transmitter. Military grade. Range of 2 miles. You wear this and we hear everything that happens. And if something goes wrong, that's where we come in. Wrench spoke up, his voice hard as iron. We'll be positioned around the quarry. Out of sight but close enough to intervene if things go sideways. The Sterlings will have security, Grace said. The Sterlings will have rent-a-cops with beer guts and bad attitudes. Tank smiled grimly. We've got Marines. Grace looked at her daughter. Her 8-year-old daughter, who'd already been through more than most people face in a lifetime. Her daughter who was sitting in a wheelchair because a drunk driver ran a red light when she was 6. Her daughter who'd lost her father and been tormented by his killers for 2 years straight. Baby, Grace said softly, you don't have to do this. Yes, I do. Lily's voice didn't waver. For Daddy. Grace closed her eyes. When she opened them again, they were wet with tears. Then we do it together. Tank nodded. Friday it is. The next 3 days were the longest of Lily's life. She went to school. She sat through classes. She ate lunch alone at her corner table while Brandon and Madison whispered and pointed and laughed. She pretended not to notice the way teachers looked at her with pity, or the way other students avoided her eyes. But underneath the mask of normalcy, she was preparing. Sarah brought her more files from her grandmother's collection. Medical records showing cancer clusters in Copper Valley that were 3 times the national average. Death certificates listing causes that didn't make sense. Water testing reports that had been doctored and buried. "This is bigger than just your dad," Sarah said on Thursday afternoon. "This is decades of people dying and nobody doing anything about it. People knew, some people suspected, most people just didn't want to see." Sarah's voice was bitter. "My grandmother tried to raise the alarm 15 years ago. She went to the town council, the health department, the newspaper. Nobody listened. And then suddenly her house was vandalized. Her car was keyed. Someone left a dead cat on her doorstep. The Sterlings. She could never prove it. But she stopped talking after that. She just started keeping records, waiting for someone brave enough to use them. Why didn't she go to the FBI herself? She did. Twice." Sarah's expression darkened. The first time the agent she talked to was transferred out of state a week later. The second time her files were stolen from her house the night before the meeting. She gave up after that, said the system was too broken to fix. But Tank thinks he can fix it. Tank has connections your grandmother didn't have. He's got people inside the agencies, people who actually want to do the right thing. Sarah paused. "And he's got you. Me. You're the human face of this Lily. You're the little girl whose father was murdered for trying to tell the truth. When this story gets out, and it will get out, you're the one people are going to remember. You're the one who's going to make them care." Lily didn't know what to say to that. She was 8 years old. She didn't want to be a symbol. She just wanted her dad back. But that wasn't possible. So she'd settle for the next best thing. Justice. Thursday night, Tank came to the house for a final briefing. He brought the transmitter, a tiny device that looked like a decorative pin. "Wear it on your collar. Keep your jacket closed so no one sees it." "What if they search me?" "They won't. You're an 8-year-old in a wheelchair. Nobody's going to suspect you of anything." Tank's voice was confident, but his eyes were serious. "But if something does happen, if you feel unsafe for even a second, you say the word butterfly. That's the signal. We come in immediately." "Butterfly," Lily repeated. "Good girl." Tank hesitated, then pulled something else from his pocket. A small photograph worn at the edges. "This is Emma, my daughter." Lily looked at the picture. A young girl with Tank's eyes and a bright, gap-toothed smile. She was wearing a hospital gown, but she was grinning like she didn't have a care in the world. "She was 9 when this was taken," Tank said quietly. 3 weeks before she died. The doctors told us there was nothing they could do. The cancer had spread too far. His voice cracked. "She asked me why her, why this was happening, and I didn't have an answer. I didn't know then what I know now. That the water made her sick. That people made her sick. People who knew what they were doing and did it anyway because it saved them money." Tank put the photograph away. "I couldn't save Emma. But I can make sure no other little girl has to go through what she went through. That's why I do this. That's why I'm here." Lily reached out and took Tank's huge, calloused hand in her small one. "We're going to get them." Tank smiled. For a moment, he didn't look like a scary biker. He looked like a dad who missed his daughter more than words could say. "Yeah, little one, we are." Friday morning dawned cold and gray. Lily dressed carefully. Dark jeans, a warm sweater, her favorite jacket with the Valkyrie pin on the inside. She ate breakfast without tasting it, kissed her mother goodbye, and wheeled herself out to the waiting school bus. "You've got this," Grace said from the doorway. Her voice was steady, but Lily could see her hands shaking. "I know, Mama. I love you. I love you too." The bus doors closed, and Lily was on her own. The ride to Sterling Quarry took 45 minutes. Lily sat in the front near the driver while the rest of the fourth grade chattered and laughed behind her. She could feel Brandon's eyes on the back of her head, but she didn't turn around. Sarah slid into the seat next to her halfway through the ride. "You okay?" "No." Lily kept her voice low. "But I'm ready. I'll stay close. Anything happens, you just signal me." "Thanks, Sarah. Don't thank me yet. Thank me when this is over and those monsters are in handcuffs." The bus rounded a curve and Sterling Quarry came into view. It was massive. A great gaping wound in the earth surrounded by chain-link fences and warning signs and heavy machinery. The main office sat at the entrance, a squat brick building with the Sterling Mining Company logo plastered across the front. And standing in front of it, waiting to greet the bus, was Richard Sterling himself. Lily had seen him before, of course. Everyone in Copper Valley knew Richard Sterling. He was tall, silver-haired, and handsome, in the way that rich men often were polished and perfect on the outside with something cold lurking underneath. Today, he was smiling. A wide, welcoming smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Welcome, students." His voice boomed across the parking lot as the children filed off the bus. "Welcome to Sterling Quarry. I'm so excited to share our family's legacy with all of you." The teachers herded the students into a group. Principal Patterson was there, along with Mrs. Whitmore and a few other faculty members. They all wore the same frozen smile, the same careful deference to the man who signed their paychecks. Lily wheeled herself to the edge of the group, trying to stay inconspicuous. But Richard Sterling's eyes found her immediately. "And you must be Lily Harper." His voice was warm, friendly, concerned. But something flickered in his gaze, something predatory. "Yes, sir." "I knew your father." Richard walked toward her and the crowd parted to let him through. "Samuel was a good man, a hard worker. Such a tragedy what happened." "Yes, sir. I want you to know that my family has always supported yours. Your mother's job at the diner, I put in a good word with the owner, made sure she was taken care of." He placed a hand on Lily's shoulder. His grip was firm. Too firm. "We take care of our own in Copper Valley." "Thank you, sir." "Now then." Richard straightened up and addressed the group. "Who's ready for a tour?" The children cheered. The teachers clapped politely. And Lily felt the weight of the transmitter against her chest, broadcasting every word to Tank and his brothers positioned in the hills around the quarry. The trap was set. Now all she had to do was survive it. The tour started innocently enough. Richard led them through the main office, showing off photographs and trophies and newspaper clippings that celebrated 100 years of Sterling mining history. He talked about innovation community progress. He smiled for photos with the students and shook hands with the teachers. But Lily noticed things. She noticed the way the workers avoided Richard's eyes when he passed. She noticed the locked doors marked, "Authorized personnel only." She noticed the faded warning signs about chemical exposure that had been partially covered by newer, friendlier posters. And she noticed Brandon. He was hanging back from the group, whispering with Madison and two other boys she didn't recognize. Every few minutes, he'd glance at Lily with that same predatory look his father had, like he was waiting for something. They reached the overlook around 11 o'clock. It was a viewing platform built on the edge of the quarry, surrounded by railings and safety signs. The drop below was dizzying, hundreds of feet of rock and machinery and emptiness. "This is where it all happens," Richard announced proudly. 70 years of continuous operation, millions of tons of limestone extracted. A true American success story. Mrs. Patterson led the applause. The students dutifully clapped along. But Lily wasn't listening. She was staring at the cliff edge about 50 yards away from the viewing platform. The edge where her father had fallen. The edge where the police found his body. Miller's edge. "Sir." Lily raised her hand before she could stop herself. "Is that where Samuel Harper died?" The temperature dropped about 10 degrees. Richard's smile flickered. Just for a moment. Then it was back warmer than ever. "Yes, dear, that's Miller's Edge. A tragic accident. Your father was working late one night and—" He shook his head sadly. "The footing can be treacherous after dark." "Was he alone?" Another flicker. "As far as we know." "Did anyone see what happened?" Principal Patterson stepped forward. "Lily, I think that's enough questions for—" "It's all right, Rebecca." Richard held up a hand. "The child is curious. It's natural." He walked toward Lily, stopping just in front of her wheelchair. "No, sweetheart. Nobody saw what happened. By the time the night watchman found him, it was too late. We all wish it had been different. The police said he was drunk. That's what the toxicology report showed, yes. But he didn't drink." Richard's smile finally cracked. "Just a little. Sometimes people keep secrets from their families, dear. It's sad, but it's true. My father didn't keep secrets from us." The silence stretched. Every eye was on Lily now. Teachers, students, Richard Sterling himself, all of them watching this small girl in a wheelchair challenge the most powerful man in town. "Well," Richard's voice had lost some of its warmth. "Grief affects people in different ways. Perhaps you remember things differently than they were." He turned back to the group. "Now then, who wants to see the processing facility?" The moment passed. The crowd moved on, but Lily saw the look Richard gave his son as they walked away, and she saw Brandon smile. The processing facility was loud, hot, and crowded, perfect cover for what happened next. Lily had fallen behind the group, struggling to navigate her wheelchair through the narrow corridors. Sarah had been separated from her, somehow pushed aside by a group of students who all seemed to move at once like it was coordinated. Which Lily realized too late it probably was. "Lost cripple." Brandon emerged from behind a stack of equipment flanked by Madison and the two boys from earlier. "Leave me alone, Brandon." "Can't do that." He walked toward her, slowly savoring the moment. "See, my dad's pretty mad about that little stunt you pulled back there. Asking questions, making accusations. That wasn't very smart. I just asked about my father." "Your father was a rat." Brandon's voice turned ugly. "A snitch who was going to ruin everything my family built. He got what was coming to him." "Did your dad tell you that—" "Did he tell you he murdered my father?" "My dad didn't murder anyone." Brandon was close now, close enough to grab her wheelchair. "Your dad fell, just like you're going to fall." He shoved. The wheelchair rolled backward, picking up speed on the sloped floor. Lily grabbed at the wheels, trying to stop herself, but Brandon was already pushing again, harder this time. "Help!" Lily screamed. "Someone help me! Scream all you want!" Madison's voice was cold. "No one can hear you over the machines." They were heading toward an open door. Beyond it, Lily could see sunlight and empty space. A loading dock. A drop. "Brandon, stop!" Lily clawed at his hands. "You're going to kill me." "That's the idea, freak." Brandon's eyes were wild now, excited. "Should have kept your mouth shut. Should have stayed in your lane. But you couldn't do that, could you? You had to be a hero like your dead daddy." The door was getting closer. 10 feet. 8 feet. 5. "Butterfly!" Lily screamed. "Butterfly! Butterfly!" Nothing happened. The machines were too loud. Tank couldn't hear her. She was going to die. And then a voice cut through the chaos like a knife through butter. "Step away from the girl. Now!" Brandon froze. Standing in the doorway blocking the exit was the biggest man Lily had ever seen. Not Tank, someone else. Someone new. He was wearing a leather vest covered in patches, and his arms were crossed over a chest that looked like it was made of solid oak. "Who the hell are you?" Brandon demanded. "Name's Crusher." The man's voice was soft, almost gentle. "And you're about 3 seconds away from making the biggest mistake of your short, pathetic life. You can't touch me. My father owns this town. Your father's got about an hour left of owning anything." Crusher stepped forward. "Now let go of that wheelchair, or I'll show you what happens to little boys who hurt little girls." Brandon's hands released. He stumbled backward, face white, with sudden fear. "This isn't over," he spat. "My dad's going to hear about this. I'm counting on it." Brandon and his cronies ran. Crusher walked toward Lily, his expression softening. "You okay, little one?" Lily was shaking so hard she could barely speak. "How did you find me? The transmitter. I couldn't—" "Tank had us positioned inside the facility. Figured they'd try something in here where it's loud." Crusher knelt down to her level. "You did good, kid. You did real good." "I didn't do anything. I almost died." "But you didn't." Crusher smiled. "And now we've got everything we need." "What do you mean?" Crusher tapped a small camera pinned to his vest. "Been recording since they grabbed you. Brandon Sterling just admitted his father killed your dad. On video. That's called a confession." Lily stared at him. Then, despite everything, despite the fear and the grief and the 2 years of hell, she started to laugh. "We got them. We got them." Sirens. Distant at first, then closer. Crusher helped Lily back to the main area where chaos had erupted. Students were being herded toward the buses. Teachers were shouting instructions. And in the middle of it all, surrounded by men in FBI jackets, stood Richard Sterling. His hands were in the air. "Richard Sterling, you're under arrest for the murder of Samuel Harper, illegal toxic waste disposal conspiracy, obstruction of justice, and about a dozen other charges we're still compiling." Tank's voice. Lily searched the crowd and found him standing next to the lead FBI agent, her father's journal in his hand. "This is ridiculous." Richard's face was purple with rage. "I'm a respected businessman. I've donated millions to this community. You've poisoned hundreds of people and murdered at least one." Tank's voice was ice. "Did you really think you'd get away with it forever? I want my lawyer. You're going to need several." Lily wheeled herself toward the scene. Students parted to let her through, staring with wide eyes. She stopped right in front of Richard Sterling. He looked down at her, and for the first time, she saw fear in his eyes. "Your father was a fool," he hissed. "He could have had money, power, anything he wanted. All he had to do was look the other way." "He couldn't do that," Lily said. "That's the difference between you and him. He cared about people more than money. And look where it got him. It got him a daughter who's going to make sure everyone knows his name." Lily held his gaze. "My father was a hero. You're going to die in prison. I know which one I'd rather be." Richard Sterling had no response to that. The FBI led him away in handcuffs. And Lily Harper, 8 years old, orphaned and bullied and broken in more ways than she could count, watched him go with dry eyes and a full heart. Justice was coming. And it was just getting started. The bus ride home was silent. Not the tense silence of before. Something different. Something like awe. Students kept glancing at Lily, then looking away when she caught them. Teachers whispered among themselves. Even Brandon and Madison, seated at the back under the watchful eye of an FBI agent, couldn't seem to find their usual cruelty. Sarah sat down next to Lily without a word. She took her hand and held it tight. "You did it," Sarah whispered. We did it. Your dad would be so proud. Lily didn't trust herself to speak. She just nodded, squeezed Sarah's hand, and watched Copper Valley roll by outside the window. Everything was different now. Everything was going to change. Grace was waiting at the school when the bus arrived. She ran toward Lily the moment the doors opened, dropping to her knees beside the wheelchair and pulling her daughter into a hug so tight it hurt. Baby, I was so scared when Tank told me what happened in the processing facility. I'm okay, Mama. Lily hugged her back just as hard. I'm okay. We're okay. They arrested him. They actually arrested him. I know. Grace pulled back, tears streaming down her face. Your daddy, he would be... I know, Mama, I know. They held each other in the parking lot while the world spun on around them. Students and parents, police cars and news vans, the ordinary chaos of a small town whose biggest secret had finally been exposed. Tank walked over as the crowd began to thin. Mrs. Harper, Lily. He nodded to them both. Hell of a day. Thank you. Grace's voice was thick with emotion. Thank you for everything. Don't thank me. Thank your daughter. Tank looked at Lily with something like wonder in his eyes. I've worked with federal agents, military operatives, hardened criminals turned informants. None of them had half the guts this little girl showed today. She's her father's daughter. That she is. Tank pulled something from his pocket, the Valkyrie pin he'd given Lily before. You dropped this in all the commotion. Thought you might want it back. Lily took the pin and held it tight. Does this mean it's over? The arrest is just the beginning. There'll be trials, investigations, probably years of legal battles. Tank's expression softened. But the hard part? The dangerous part? Yeah, little one. That's over. You're safe now. What about the other kids? The ones who helped Brandon? Madison Sterling's been taken into custody. The other two are being questioned. Depending on what the DA decides, they could face charges too. They're just kids. Kids who tried to kill you. Tank's voice hardened. Actions have consequences. That's a lesson this town is finally going to learn. Lily nodded slowly. Part of her, a small part, almost felt sorry for Madison. Almost. Then she remembered the look on Brandon's face as he pushed her toward that drop. The pity faded. That night, for the first time in 2 years, Lily slept without nightmares. She dreamed of her father instead. Not the way he looked at the end in the photographs from the accident scene that she'd accidentally seen on her mother's computer, but the way he really was. Laughing. Dancing in the kitchen. Lifting her onto his shoulders so she could see the Christmas parade. In the dream, he was standing on a hill overlooking Copper Valley. The sun was setting behind him, painting the sky in shades of gold and red. You did good, baby girl. His voice was warm, familiar home. I always knew you would. I miss you, Daddy. I know. I miss you too. He smiled that smile she'd been afraid she was forgetting. But I'm always with you. Right here. He touched his chest over his heart. Always. Will the bad men go to prison? The wheels of justice turn slow, but they turn. Her father's expression grew serious. There's still work to be done, Lily. The Sterlings weren't the only ones. There are people all over this country doing what they did. Hurting people. Lying. Getting away with it. I'm just a kid. You're my kid, he grinned. And my kid can do anything she sets her mind to. I love you, Daddy. I love you too, baby girl. Always and forever. The dream faded. The sun set. And Lily woke up with tears on her cheeks and peace in her heart. Morning brought reporters. They were camped outside the house by dawn, a small army of cameras and microphones and perfectly styled hair. Grace took one look at the circus and closed the curtains. "We're not talking to anyone," she told Lily firmly. "Not until we've had a chance to process everything." "But don't people need to know what happened?" "They will, but we get to choose when and how." Grace knelt down to her daughter's level. "You've already been through so much, baby. You don't owe anyone anything else." Tank arrived around 9, slipping in through the back door to avoid the press. "It's even bigger than we thought," he said without preamble. "The FBI's been going through Sterling's files all night. Turns out he's been paying off officials for decades. Cops, judges, health inspectors, even a couple of state legislators. That's why no one ever stopped him. That's why no one could stop him." Tank's expression was grim. "But it's all falling apart now. 3 officials have already resigned. 2 more are expected to be arrested by the end of the week. This thing is going to shake Copper Valley to its foundations." "Good," Lily said quietly. "It needed shaking." Tank looked at her with surprise, then respect. "You're something else, little one." "I'm my father's daughter." "Yeah." Tank smiled. "Yeah, you are." The arraignment was scheduled for Monday. 3 days to process, 3 days to prepare, 3 days for the story to spread from local news to regional to national. By Saturday afternoon, Copper Valley was trending on social media. By Sunday morning, Lily's name was being mentioned in the same breath as words like hero and justice and courage. She didn't feel like a hero. She felt like a tired 8-year-old who just wanted her father back. But she also felt something else, something new. Purpose. Sunday night, Grace sat down with Lily at the kitchen table. The same table where they'd first opened Samuel's journal. The same table where their lives had changed forever. "Baby, I need to talk to you about something." "What is it, Mama?" "The FBI wants you to testify at Richard Sterling's trial. They say your testimony about what Brandon said about what you experienced could be crucial." Lily's stomach clenched. "They want me to talk in front of everyone in a courtroom." "You don't have to. You're a minor. They can't force you." Grace took her hands. "But they think it would help. And I think your daddy would want you to if you felt strong enough." "Will you be there? Every second?" "Will Tank? He wouldn't miss it." Lily was quiet for a long moment. She thought about her father, about the journal, about all the people who'd been hurt, and all the people who'd looked the other way, about Brandon's face as he pushed her toward the drop, about Richard Sterling's eyes when he realized it was over. "I'll do it," she said. "I'll testify." Grace's eyes filled with tears. "You're so brave, baby." "I'm scared." "That's what brave means." Grace kissed her forehead. Being scared and doing it anyway. Monday morning. Lily put on her best dress and wheeled herself into the Copper Valley courthouse. The hallway was packed. Reporters, lawyers, townspeople who wanted to witness the downfall of the Sterling dynasty. Grace walked beside her, one hand on her shoulder. Tank and Wrench flanked them like leather-clad guardian angels. "You ready, little one?" Tank asked. "No," Lily said honestly. "Good. Means you're taking it seriously." The courtroom doors opened, and Lily Harper, 8 years old, rolled herself into the arena where the final battle would be fought. Richard Sterling was already there, seated at the defense table with a team of expensive lawyers. He looked smaller somehow, diminished, like a balloon with the air slowly leaking out. Brandon and Madison sat in the gallery behind him. Their faces were pale, scared. They looked like what they really were, now children who'd been raised by a monster and never learned the difference between right and wrong. Lily almost felt sorry for them. Almost. The judge entered. Everyone rose. And as the proceedings began, Lily felt her father's presence beside her, steady and strong and proud. Justice was here, and nothing would ever be the same. The courtroom fell silent as the judge took his seat. Lily's heart pounded so loud she was certain everyone could hear it. Her wheelchair was positioned near the front, close enough to see Richard Sterling's face, close enough to feel the weight of his hatred pressing against her like a physical force. "All rise for the Honorable Judge Marcus Thompson." Everyone stood. Everyone except Lily, who gripped the armrests of her chair and forced herself to breathe. This was it. The moment everything had been building toward. "Be seated." Judge Thompson was an older black man with gray at his temples and eyes that had seen every kind of human cruelty. He shuffled papers, then looked up at the packed courtroom. "Before we proceed, I want to make something clear. This is a court of law, not a circus. I will tolerate no outbursts, no demonstrations, no theatrics. Anyone who disrupts these proceedings will be removed and held in contempt. Am I understood?" A murmur of assent rippled through the room. "Good." The judge turned to the prosecution table. "Mr. District Attorney, you may begin." District Attorney Patricia Vance stood. She was a tall woman in her 50s with silver-streaked hair and a reputation for being absolutely ruthless. She'd driven 4 hours from the state capitol to handle this case personally. "Your Honor, the state will prove that Richard Sterling, over the course of 30 years, knowingly and willfully dumped toxic chemicals into the water supply of Copper Valley. We will prove that this dumping directly caused the deaths of at least 47 residents, including children. And we will prove that when Samuel Harper discovered this criminal activity and threatened to expose it, Richard Sterling had him murdered." A gasp swept through the gallery. Richard Sterling's lead attorney shot to his feet. "Objection. This is inflammatory and prejudicial." "Overruled." Judge Thompson's voice was dry. "This is an opening statement, Mr. Crawford. The prosecution is entitled to preview their case. Sit down." Crawford sat, his face red with fury. D.A. Vance continued without missing a beat. "The state will present evidence, including chemical analysis of the quarry site, medical records of affected residents, financial records showing payoffs to officials, and testimony from eyewitnesses, including one very brave young girl who survived an attempt on her life by the defendant's own son." Every eye in the room turned to Lily. She kept her gaze fixed straight ahead, refusing to look at Richard Sterling, refusing to show fear. "We will prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Richard Sterling is a murderer, a poisoner, and a man who put profit above human life for 3 decades. Vance's voice rang through the courtroom. "And we will ask that he be held accountable for every single victim. Thank you." She sat down. The defense attorney rose slowly, straightening his $1,000 tie. "Ladies and gentlemen, you've just heard a fairy tale. A story designed to appeal to emotion rather than evidence, to paint a successful businessman as a monster because it makes for a good narrative." Crawford walked toward the jury box. "Richard Sterling built this town. He provided jobs, funded schools, supported charities. And now, because of the accusations of a grieving child and the testimony of criminals on motorcycles, his entire life's work is being dismantled." "Objection." Vance didn't even stand. "Characterizing witnesses as criminals is prejudicial." Sustained. Mr. Crawford, confine yourself to the facts." Crawford smiled tightly. "Of course, Your Honor. The defense will show that Samuel Harper's death was a tragic accident, nothing more. We will show that the so-called evidence has been tampered with, manufactured, or misinterpreted. And we will show that Lily Harper, a troubled child dealing with grief and disability, has been manipulated by outside parties with their own agenda." Lily's hands clenched. Troubled child. manipulated. They were going to make her the villain. "The truth will come out in this courtroom," Crawford concluded. "And when it does, you will see that Richard Sterling is an innocent man being railroaded by a mob." He sat down. Judge Thompson looked at the prosecution. "Call your first witness." "The state calls Dr. Rebecca Morrison." The testimony began. Dr. Morrison was an environmental scientist who'd spent 20 years studying water contamination. She walked the jury through the evidence, methodically: soil samples, water tests, chemical signatures that matched compounds used in Sterling Quarry's processing operations. "In your expert opinion," Vance asked, "was this contamination accidental or deliberate? Deliberate without question." Dr. Morrison's voice was calm, clinical. "The dumping occurred in specific locations designed to minimize detection. The chemicals were disposed of at night. Records were falsified. This wasn't negligence. This was a calculated criminal operation." Objection. Speculation. Overruled. The witness is offering an expert opinion based on evidence. Dr. Morrison continued. "We found contamination levels in the groundwater that were 40 times the legal limit. 40 times. And based on the chemical degradation patterns, this dumping had been occurring for at least 25 years. The jury looked sick. Cross-examination was brutal. Crawford attacked Dr. Morrison's methodology, her credentials, her funding sources. He suggested she was being paid by environmental activists with an agenda. He implied her results were fabricated. Dr. Morrison didn't flinch. "Mr. Crawford, I've testified in 17 federal cases. My work has been peer-reviewed and published in every major scientific journal. You can attack me all you want, but the evidence speaks for itself. The water in Copper Valley was poisoned, and Richard Sterling's quarry was the source." Crawford sat down, defeated. First victory, Lily thought. But the hardest part was still coming. The medical testimony was devastating. One by one, doctors took the stand and described the patients they'd treated: the cancer clusters, the birth defects, the neurological disorders, the children who died before they reached their 10th birthday. "In 40 years of practice," said Dr. Harold Chen Sarah's grandfather, "I've never seen anything like this. Entire families wiped out. Young people developing diseases we normally only see in the elderly. And every single one of them lived within 5 miles of Sterling Quarry." "Did you report your concerns to the health department?" "I did, multiple times. Nothing ever happened." Dr. Chen's voice cracked. "My own wife died of cancer 6 years ago. I always wondered why. Now I know." The courtroom was so quiet you could hear people breathing. "Did Richard Sterling ever contact you about your reports?" "Not directly. But 2 weeks after my first complaint, I received a visit from the county health inspector. He told me to stop making trouble or my medical license would be reviewed." Dr. Chen looked directly at Richard Sterling. "I was a coward. I stopped. And more people died because of my silence." No further questions. Crawford didn't even cross-examine. There was nothing he could say. The prosecution called witness after witness: factory workers who'd seen the midnight dumping runs, truck drivers who'd been paid to look the other way, government officials who'd accepted bribes to bury reports. Each testimony was another nail in Richard Sterling's coffin. But through it all, Sterling himself sat motionless, his face a mask of cold contempt. He still believed he was going to win. Lily could see it in his eyes. That changed on day 3. The state calls Thomas Wright to the stand. Tank walked to the witness box like a man going to war. He'd traded his leather vest for a dark suit, but nothing could disguise the tattoos on his hands or the warrior's bearing in his shoulders. He placed his hand on the Bible and swore to tell the truth. "Mr. Wright, please tell the court your background." "I served 18 years in the United States Marine Corps, 3 combat deployments, After my discharge, I worked as a private investigator specializing in environmental crimes. What drew you to that field? Tank's jaw tightened. My daughter, Emma. She died of cancer when she was 12 years old. The cancer was caused by water contamination from a quarry in our hometown. The company responsible was never held accountable. Objection. This is irrelevant. Overruled. The witness is establishing motivation. Continue, Mr. Wright. After Emma died, I made it my mission to expose companies like the one that killed her. I've worked on cases in 15 states. Sterling Quarry was the biggest operation I've ever encountered. How did you become involved in this case? I received a tip about 2 years ago that something was wrong in Copper Valley. I came to investigate. What I found was a systematic cover-up spanning 3 decades. Can you describe what you discovered? Tank spent the next 2 hours laying out the case in devastating detail. The shell companies Sterling used to hide payments, the offshore accounts where bribe money was laundered, the network of corrupt officials who protected the operation. We found records of 47 confirmed deaths directly linked to the contamination, Tank said. But the real number is probably much higher. Many victims were never properly diagnosed. Their deaths were attributed to natural causes. Mr. Wright, did your investigation reveal any evidence regarding the death of Samuel Harper? Yes. Tank's voice hardened. Samuel Harper was a quarry employee who discovered the dumping operation. He spent months gathering evidence. He was scheduled to meet with federal investigators on March 15th, 2 years ago. He died on March 14th. The defense claims his death was an accident. His death was staged to look like an accident. Tank pulled a document from his jacket. This is a toxicology report obtained through a faux IA request. The original report showed no alcohol in Samuel Harper's system. That report was altered by the county coroner, who received a $50,000 payment from a shell company linked to Richard Sterling 1 week after Harper's death. The courtroom erupted. Order, order. Judge Thompson banged his gavel. I will have order. Crawford was on his feet, screaming objections. The jury was wide-eyed with shock. Reporters were furiously typing on their phones, and Richard Sterling's mask finally cracked. For one moment, Lily saw pure terror in his eyes. The terror of a man who suddenly realized his empire was crumbling. Then the mask slammed back into place, and he was cold and composed again. But Lily had seen it. She knew. He was scared. Good. The cross-examination was vicious. Mr. Wright, isn't it true that you're a member of an outlaw motorcycle gang? I'm a member of a motorcycle club. There's a difference. A club with documented ties to criminal activity. Objection. Prejudicial. Sustained. Move on, Mr. Crawford. Crawford switched tactics. Mr. Wright, you have a personal vendetta against companies like Sterling Quarry, don't you? I have a commitment to justice. You lost your daughter. You blame corporations. You've made it your life's mission to destroy businesses like Richard Sterling's. I've made it my life's mission to protect children from being poisoned. Tank leaned forward. Your client killed 47 people. Probably more. He murdered Samuel Harper to cover it up. And when Harper's 8-year-old daughter started asking questions, your client's son tried to throw her off a cliff. Tank's voice dropped to a growl. So yes, Mr. Crawford, I'm committed to bringing him down. And I'm not apologizing for it. Crawford had no response. No further questions, he muttered. Tank stepped down from the witness stand. As he passed Lily, he gave her the smallest nod. Her turn was coming. Day 4. The moment Lily had been dreading. The state calls Lily Harper to the stand. Grace squeezed her hand. Tank gave her an encouraging look. Sarah, sitting in the gallery, mouthed, You've got this. Lily wheeled herself to the witness box. A court officer helped her position herself so the jury could see her clearly. She placed her hand on the Bible. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do. Devance approached with a gentle smile. Lily, I know this is scary. Just take your time and tell us what happened. Lily took a deep breath. Where do you want me to start? Let's start with the bullying. When did it begin? About 2 years ago, right after my father died. Lily's voice was steady, but her hands gripped the armrests of her chair. Brandon Sterling started calling me names. Cripple, freak, speed bump. He'd push me in the hallways, trip my wheelchair, dump food on me. Did you report this to the school? My mom did, multiple times. Nothing ever happened. Why do you think that is? Because the Sterlings pay for everything. The gym, the computer lab, the principal's bonus. Lily looked at the jury. Everyone in that school knew what was happening to me. Nobody did anything because they were all scared of Richard Sterling. Let's talk about the day of the field trip. Can you describe what happened at Sterling Quarry? Lily told them everything. The tour, the processing facility, Brandon grabbing her wheelchair, the push toward the loading dock. He said his father killed my dad, Lily said. He said I got what was coming to me. He said he was going to finish what they started. Objection hearsay. Overruled. The statement is offered for its effect on the witness, not for truth. Continue. Brandon pushed me toward the door. There was a drop outside, a loading dock. He was going to push me off. Lily's voice cracked for the first time. I screamed for help. Nobody came. I thought I was going to die. What happened next? A man stopped them, one of the bikers, Crusher. Lily wiped her eyes. He saved my life. The jury was transfixed. Several members looked close to tears. Lily, one more question. Your father's journal. The evidence that's been presented in this case, how did you find it? My dad hid it in our garage, behind a photograph of me and him together. He left a note. Lily's voice broke completely. He said he was sorry he couldn't stop them. But maybe I could. The courtroom was absolutely silent. No further questions, Your Honor. Judge Thompson looked at Crawford. Your witness. Crawford stood slowly. He adjusted his tie, smoothed his jacket, approached the witness box with a sympathetic expression that made Lily's skin crawl. Lily, first let me say how sorry I am for everything you've been through. Losing your father, dealing with your disability, it's more than any child should have to bear. Thank you. Lily's voice was flat. I just have a few questions. When you found your father's journal, were you alone? Yes. And you immediately showed it to your mother? Yes. Who then contacted Mr. Wright and his associates? We met them at my mom's diner. They were already investigating Sterling Quarry. Convenient, wasn't it? Crawford smiled. These bikers just happened to be investigating the same company your father was looking into. They were investigating because other people died too. Not just my dad. But they needed your father's journal to make their case, didn't they? Without that evidence, they had nothing. Objection. Argumentative. Withdrawn. Crawford switched tactics again. Lily, you're 8 years old, is that correct? Yes. And you've been through tremendous trauma. Your father's death, the accident that put you in that wheelchair, the bullying at school. Yes. Trauma can affect memory, can't it? Make us remember things differently than they actually happened. I remember everything exactly how it happened. Do you? Because Brandon Sterling says he accidentally bumped your wheelchair in the processing facility. He says he reached out to catch you, and you panicked. He says there was no intent to harm you at all. He's lying. Is he, or is it possible, just possible, that a traumatized little girl misinterpreted a chaotic situation? He told me his father killed my dad. Lily's voice rose. He said I got what was coming to me. He pushed me toward a 100-foot drop. That wasn't a misinterpretation. But you were scared. You were upset. Objection! Vance was on her feet. Counsel is badgering the witness. Sustained. Mr. Crawford, this is an 8-year-old child. Treat her with appropriate respect or I will hold you in contempt. Crawford backed off, but the damage was done. He'd planted seeds of doubt in the jury's mind. No further questions. Lily wheeled herself back to her spot, shaking with anger. Grace wrapped an arm around her. You did amazing, baby. He made me sound crazy. The jury saw the truth, don't worry. But Lily was worried. Crawford was good. Too good. What if the jury believed his version? What if Richard Sterling walked free? The answer came sooner than anyone expected. Your Honor. D.A. Vance stood as Lily returned to her seat. The state has one more witness. We call Brandon Sterling. The courtroom exploded. Objection! Crawford screamed. Brandon Sterling is a minor. He cannot be compelled to testify against his father. He's not testifying against his father, Your Honor. He's testifying about his own actions. Actions that were captured on video by a witness who's already been deposed. Judge Thompson held up a hand. I'll allow it. The witness is old enough to understand the oath. Bring him in. Brandon Sterling walked to the witness stand like a condemned man approaching the gallows. His face was pale, his eyes darting around the courtroom. He looked nothing like the bully who'd terrorized Lily for 2 years. He looked like a scared kid. Lily almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Brandon, you understand you're under oath? Yes, ma'am. Please tell the court what happened in the processing facility at Sterling Quarry. Brandon's eyes flicked to his father. Richard Sterling gave him a tiny shake of his head. It was an accident. I bumped into Lily's wheelchair and... Brandon. Vance's voice was gentle but firm. We have video evidence. We have audio of what you said. If you lie under oath, you will go to juvenile detention. Is that what you want? Brandon's lip trembled. I want to talk to my lawyer. You have a lawyer. He's right there. Vance pointed at the defense table. But I don't think he has your best interests at heart. I think he's more concerned with protecting your father than protecting you. Objection. Sustained, but the point is made. Judge Thompson looked at Brandon with something like pity. Son, you need to tell the truth. Whatever happens, it will go better for you if you tell the truth. Brandon was crying now, fat tears rolling down his cheeks. I didn't want to hurt her, he whispered. Then tell us what happened. My dad said she was causing problems. He said her family was going to ruin everything we built. He said... Brandon's voice broke. He said I needed to take care of it. The courtroom gasped. Take care of it? How? Make her go away. Scare her. He didn't say. Brandon was sobbing openly now. He didn't say to kill her. I swear he didn't say that. But I was so angry and she kept pushing and I just wanted her to stop. Brandon, did your father ever tell you what really happened to Samuel Harper? Richard Sterling rose to his feet. Brandon, don't you dare. Mr. Sterling, sit down or you will be removed. He killed him. Brandon's voice was barely audible. My dad killed Lily's father. He told me last year. He was drunk, and he told me everything. He said Samuel Harper was going to destroy our family, so he had to be stopped. Absolute silence. Then chaos. Richard Sterling lunged across the defense table, screaming at his son. Marshals tackled him to the ground. Crawford was shouting objections that nobody heard. The gallery erupted in shocked voices. Through it all, Lily sat perfectly still, watching the man who murdered her father being wrestled into handcuffs by 4 federal marshals. It was over. They had won. But victory didn't feel like she thought it would. It didn't feel triumphant or satisfying. It felt hollow and sad and exhausting. Her father was still dead. 2 years of torment couldn't be erased. Brandon Sterling was a monster, but he was also a 12-year-old kid whose own father had turned him into a weapon. There were no winners here. Only survivors. Grace was crying. Tank had his head bowed. Even D.A. Vance looked shaken by the raw emotion that had just poured out of a child on the witness stand. Judge Thompson restored order with difficulty. Given the defendant's outburst and the testimony we've just heard, I'm remanding Richard Sterling to custody without bail pending the completion of this trial. He looked at Brandon, still crying on the witness stand. Son, you're going to need help. Real help. I'm recommending you be placed in a therapeutic facility rather than juvenile detention. You've done a brave thing today. Brandon didn't look up. He just kept crying. As the marshals led Richard Sterling away, he passed within 3 feet of Lily's wheelchair. Their eyes met. "This isn't over," Sterling hissed. "You think you've won? You've won nothing. Your lawyers will visit you in prison." Lily's voice was steady. "Just like you visited my father at the bottom of that cliff." Sterling's face twisted with hatred. Then he was gone, dragged through a side door to a waiting transport. Lily let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. "It's over," Grace whispered, hugging her tight. "Baby, it's finally over." But as Lily looked around the courtroom at the crying witnesses, the shaken jury, the reporters already broadcasting the verdict to the world, she knew her mother was wrong. This wasn't an ending. This was just the beginning. The trial continued for 3 more days, but the outcome was never in doubt. Brandon's testimony had shattered the defense. Crawford tried everything. Motions to dismiss, claims of coercion, desperate appeals to the jury's sympathy, but the evidence was overwhelming. Richard Sterling had murdered Samuel Harper. Richard Sterling had poisoned an entire town. Richard Sterling was going to prison for the rest of his life. The verdict came on a Friday afternoon. On the charge of murder in the 1st degree, we find the defendant guilty. Grace sobbed with relief. On the charge of environmental terrorism, we find the defendant guilty. Tank bowed his head. On 47 counts of negligent homicide, we find the defendant guilty. The courtroom erupted in cheers. Richard Sterling sat motionless as the verdicts were read. Guilty on all counts. Life in prison without possibility of parole. His empire, his legacy, his entire world destroyed by an 8-year-old girl and her father's journal. As they led him away, Sterling turned one last time to look at Lily. There was no hatred in his eyes now, no contempt, just emptiness. The hollow gaze of a man who had lost everything. Lily met his stare without flinching. "For my father," she whispered. Sterling looked away. Outside the courthouse, the sun was shining. Reporters swarmed around Lily and Grace, shouting questions, thrusting microphones in their faces. Tank and his brothers formed a protective circle, keeping the chaos at bay. "Mrs. Harper, how do you feel about the verdict?" "Lily, what message do you have for other kids facing bullying?" "Is it true you're writing a book about your experience?" Grace held up her hand. "We'll have a statement later. Right now, we just want to go home." They made their way through the crowd to a waiting car. Tank held the door open. His face creased with a rare smile. "You did it, little one." "We did it." Lily looked up at him. "I couldn't have done any of this without you." "Sure you could have." Tank knelt down to her level. "You're the bravest person I've ever met, Lily Harper. Your father would be proud." Lily's eyes filled with tears. "You think so? I know so." Tank pulled the Valkyrie pin from his pocket, the same one he'd given her weeks ago. "This belongs to you forever. You've earned your wings." Lily took the pin and held it tight against her heart. For the first time since her father died, she felt like maybe, just maybe, everything was going to be okay. The car pulled away from the courthouse, leaving the chaos behind. Lily pressed her face against the window, watching Copper Valley roll past. The town looked different somehow. Brighter. Cleaner. Like a weight had been lifted from its shoulders. "Where are we going?" she asked. Grace smiled. "There's somewhere I want to take you. Somewhere special." 20 minutes later, they pulled up to the cemetery. Lily's father's grave. Grace helped her out of the car and into her wheelchair. Together they made their way down the winding path to the simple headstone where Samuel Harper was buried. Samuel James Harper, beloved husband and father. The truth will set you free. Lily sat in silence for a long moment, staring at the words carved in stone. "Hi, Daddy," she finally whispered. "We did it. We got them. Richard Sterling is going to prison forever. Brandon confessed everything. The whole town knows the truth now." The wind rustled through the trees. A bird sang somewhere in the distance. "I miss you so much. Every single day. I wish you could have seen it. I wish you could have been there when the verdict came in." Lily wiped her eyes. "But I know you were watching. I know you were with me the whole time." Grace knelt beside her daughter, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Your daddy loved you more than anything in this world," she said softly. "And he would be so, so proud of the girl you've become. I just wanted to make him proud." "You did, baby. You did." They stayed at the grave until the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of gold and orange. Mother and daughter united in grief and love and the fierce determination that had carried them through the darkest days of their lives. Finally, Lily took a deep breath. "I'm ready to go home." Grace nodded. "Let's go home." As they made their way back to the car, Lily looked over her shoulder one last time at her father's grave. "I love you, Daddy," she whispered. And somewhere in the fading light she could have sworn she heard his voice answering, "I love you too, baby girl, always and forever." 3 weeks after the verdict, Lily woke up screaming. Grace burst into her room, heart pounding. Baby, what's wrong?" Lily was drenched in sweat, tangled in her sheets, her eyes wild with terror. "He was there, Mama, at the cliff. He was pushing me, and nobody came. Nobody." Shh. Grace gathered her daughter in her arms, rocking her like she used to when Lily was a baby. "It's okay. It was just a dream. You're safe. You're safe." But they both knew it wasn't just a dream. It was the 5th nightmare this week. The 3rd time Lily had woken up screaming. Victory hadn't erased the trauma. Justice hadn't healed the wounds. The monsters were in prison, but they still lived in Lily's head. "I thought it would stop," Lily whispered. "I thought once he was gone I'd feel better." "Healing takes time, baby." "How much time?" Grace didn't have an answer. The next morning, Tank showed up at their door. He looked different somehow. Lighter, like the weight of the investigation had finally lifted from his shoulders. But when he saw Lily's face, pale exhausted, haunted, his expression shifted to concern. "Rough night," Lily nodded. "Yeah." Tank sat down across from her at the kitchen table. "I figured. That's actually why I'm here. What do you mean? After Emma died, I had nightmares for 3 years straight. Couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, almost drank myself to death. Tank's voice was matter-of-fact, like he was discussing the weather. Then I met a woman, a therapist who specializes in trauma. She saved my life. You think I need therapy? I think everyone who goes through what you went through needs help processing it. There's no shame in that. Tank pulled a card from his pocket. Her name's Dr. Sarah Williams. She's based in the city, but she's agreed to come to Copper Valley twice a week to work with victims of the Sterling situation. Lily took the card. You set this up? I made some calls. There's a lot of people in this town who need healing, little one. You're just one of them. Grace looked at Tank with gratitude in her eyes. Thank you. For everything. Don't thank me yet. Tank's expression grew serious. There's something else I need to tell you both. Something that came up during the investigation that we couldn't release until after the trial. What is it? Tank took a deep breath. Richard Sterling wasn't working alone. The corruption went deeper than we thought. The mayor, the police chief, 3 county commissioners, they were all on his payroll. We knew that. What we didn't know was that they're not going quietly. Tank leaned forward. 2 days ago, Mayor Harrison fled the country. He's somewhere in South America now, beyond extradition. Chief Brooks is claiming he was coerced and is cooperating with prosecutors in exchange for immunity. And the commissioners are pointing fingers at each other, trying to cut deals. What does this mean for us? It means the fight isn't over. Sterling's in prison, but his network is still out there. Some of them are scared. Desperate. Tank's voice dropped. And desperate people do desperate things. Lily's stomach clenched. Are we in danger? I don't think so. Not directly, but I want you both to be careful. Watch your surroundings, report anything suspicious, and keep my number on speed dial. You're scaring me, Grace said. Good. A little fear keeps you alert. Tank stood up. I've got brothers keeping an eye on things. You're not alone in this, but I wanted you to know what we're dealing with. After Tank left, Lily sat at the kitchen table staring at the therapist's card. Dr. Sarah Williams, trauma specialist. 3 weeks ago, she'd thought the hard part was over. She'd thought putting Richard Sterling behind bars would fix everything. She was wrong. The real work was just beginning. School resumed the following Monday. Lily wheeled herself through the front doors of Copper Valley Elementary, bracing for the stares, the whispers, the inevitable attention that came with being the girl who brought down the most powerful family in town. What she didn't expect was applause. It started with a single clap. Sarah Chen, standing by the lockers, her hands coming together in a slow, deliberate rhythm. Then another student joined in. Then another. Then the whole hallway was clapping, cheering some kids, even wiping tears from their eyes. Lily froze. She didn't know what to do, what to say. A boy she barely knew stepped forward. He was maybe 10, skinny, with a scar on his chin that looked recent. My mom died 2 years ago, he said quietly. Cancer. The doctors didn't know why. He swallowed hard. Now we know. Because of you. Because you didn't give up. Lily's throat closed up. I'm sorry about your mom. Thank you for fighting. He stuck out his hand. I'm Marcus. Lily shook it. I'm Lily. I know who you are, Marcus smiled. Everyone does. The rest of the day was a blur of handshakes, hugs, and tearful thank yous. Kids she'd never spoken to wanted to know her story. Teachers who'd ignored her for years now went out of their way to be kind. Even the cafeteria staff gave her extra dessert. It was overwhelming. exhausting, and deeply, profoundly uncomfortable. "You okay?" Sarah asked at lunch. "I don't know." Lily pushed her food around her plate. "Everyone keeps treating me like I'm some kind of hero, but I don't feel like a hero. I feel like a scared kid who got lucky." "You're not lucky. You're brave." "There's a difference." "Yeah." Sarah leaned forward. "Lucky is surviving by accident. Brave is surviving on purpose. You made choices, Lily. Hard choices. Dangerous choices. You could have stayed quiet and let the Sterlings win. You didn't." "I had help. Everyone has help. That doesn't make what you did less important." Sarah squeezed her hand. "You changed this town. You changed a lot of people's lives, including mine. Yours, my grandmother died thinking no one would ever care about the truth. Because of you, she was wrong." Sarah's eyes were wet. "So yeah, Lily Harper, you're a hero. Deal with it." Lily didn't know what to say, so she just squeezed Sarah's hand back and tried not to cry. That afternoon, Principal Patterson resigned. The announcement came over the intercom at 2 o'clock. A brief, formal statement about pursuing other opportunities and spending more time with family. No mention of the years she'd spent protecting the Sterling kids. No acknowledgement of the students she'd failed. "Good riddance," Sarah muttered. But Lily felt something unexpected. Not satisfaction. Not relief. Pity. Patterson had been weak, corrupt, complicit in terrible things. But she'd also been trapped in a system that rewarded silence and punished truth-telling. She'd made the easy choice instead of the right one, and now she had to live with the consequences. "What do you think happens to her?" Lily asked. "Who cares? I do, kind of." Lily frowned. "She's not like Sterling. She didn't kill anyone. She just looked the other way." "That's almost worse. Sterling was evil. Patterson was a coward. At least evil has conviction." "Maybe." Lily wheeled herself toward the exit. "But I'm glad I'm not her. I'm glad I never have to wonder what kind of person I would have been if I'd stayed quiet." "You wouldn't have stayed quiet." "How do you know?" Sarah smiled. "Because you're Lily Harper. And Lily Harper doesn't know how to shut up." Despite everything, Lily laughed. The new principal started the following week. His name was Dr. Marcus Webb, and he was nothing like Patterson. He was young, energetic, and had a reputation for being ruthlessly fair. Within his first 3 days, he'd fired 2 teachers who'd been documented covering up bullying incidents and implemented a zero-tolerance policy for harassment. "I'm not here to make friends," he told the assembled students during his first assembly. "I'm here to make sure every single one of you feels safe. If you're being bullied, report it. If you see someone else being bullied, report it. And if anyone tells you to stay quiet and mind your own business, come straight to my office. Because in this school, we protect each other." Lily felt something loosen in her chest. Something she hadn't even realized was tight. For the first time in 3 years, school felt like it might actually be safe. But not everyone was happy about the changes. Madison Sterling returned to school on Thursday. She'd been released from juvenile custody after 2 weeks. Her lawyers had argued she was a minor who'd been unduly influenced by her brother, and the judge had agreed. She was on probation, required to attend counseling, but otherwise free to resume her life. Free to resume tormenting Lily. Or so everyone thought. Madison walked into the cafeteria at noon, and the room went silent. Every eye tracked her as she collected her food, looked around for a place to sit. Nobody would meet her gaze. The tables that had always welcomed her were suddenly full. The friends who'd laughed at her jokes now studied their trays with intense concentration. The kingdom she'd ruled for years had crumbled, and everyone knew it. Madison stood in the middle of the cafeteria tray in hand, completely alone. For one moment, Lily felt a surge of satisfaction. This was justice. This was karma. Madison Sterling was finally experiencing what Lily had felt for 2 years. Then Madison's eyes met hers, and Lily saw something she never expected. Fear. Not the cruel, calculating fear of a bully plotting her next move. Real fear. The kind of fear that comes from realizing your entire world has collapsed, and you have no idea how to survive. Madison was 10 years old. Her father was in prison for life. Her brother was in a juvenile facility. Her mother had fled town. Her family name was synonymous with murder and corruption. She was a monster's daughter, and everyone knew it. Lily thought about what Sarah had said, about the difference between evil and cowardice, about the choices that define who we are. She thought about her father and what he would want her to do. Then she wheeled herself across the cafeteria to where Madison was standing. "You can sit with us." Madison stared at her. "What? I said you can sit with us." Lily nodded toward the table where Sarah was watching with wide eyes. "If you want." "Why would you do that?" "After everything Because you're alone, and I know what that feels like." Lily met her gaze. "I'm not saying I forgive you. I'm not saying we're friends. But nobody deserves to be completely alone." Madison's lip trembled. For a moment, Lily thought she might cry. Then she straightened her shoulders and followed Lily to the table. Sarah looked like she'd swallowed a lemon. "You've got to be kidding me." "One meal," Lily said. "Just one meal." "Fine," Sarah glared at Madison. "But if you try anything, I will personally make your life a living hell." Madison sat down. "I won't try anything." "Good." They ate in uncomfortable silence. It wasn't friendship. It wasn't forgiveness. But it was something. A beginning, maybe, or at least an end to one kind of war. That night, Lily had her first session with Dr. Williams. The therapist was a warm, soft-spoken woman in her 50s, with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. She didn't treat Lily like a fragile child. She treated her like a person who had been through trauma and needed tools to process it. "Tell me about the nightmares," she said. Lily told her. About the cliff, about Brandon's face, about the feeling of falling with no one to catch her. "What happens when you wake up?" "I can't breathe. My heart races. I feel like I'm still there, like it's still happening." "That's called a flashback. It's your brain's way of trying to process something that was too overwhelming to deal with in the moment." Dr. Williams leaned forward. "The good news is it's treatable. The bad news is it takes time and work." "How much time?" "That depends on you, on how willing you are to face the hard stuff." Lily thought about the last few months, about the journal, the trial, the testimony, about standing up to Richard Sterling and watching him dragged away in handcuffs. "I'm not afraid of hard stuff." Dr. Williams smiled. "No, I don't imagine you are." They talked for an hour. About Lily's father, about the bullying, about the complicated feelings she had toward Madison and Brandon and all the people who had hurt her. "You showed compassion to Madison today," Dr. Williams said near the end of the session. "That was unexpected. It felt right. Do you think she deserves compassion?" Lily considered the question. "I think everyone deserves a chance to change, even people who've done bad things. My dad believed that. He always said people are more than their worst moments." "And what about you? Do you believe you're more than your worst moments?" The question hit Lily like a punch to the chest. She thought about the times she'd given up, the times she'd wanted to quit, to hide, to let the Sterlings win. The times she'd wished she could just disappear and let someone else fight the battle. "I don't know," she admitted. "Sometimes I feel like the worst moments are all I am. Like the girl I was before Dad died, before the accident is gone forever. And what's left is just broken pieces. What if the broken pieces are more valuable than what was there before?" Lily blinked. "What do you mean?" "There's a Japanese art form called kintsugi. When a bowl breaks, they repair it with gold. The cracks become part of the beauty. They tell the story of what the object has survived." Dr. Williams smiled gently. "You've been broken, Lily, but you're being repaired with gold. And the person you're becoming is going to be stronger and more beautiful than the person you were before." Lily didn't know what to say, so she just sat with the words, letting them settle into her heart, like seeds in fertile soil. Maybe being broken wasn't the end. Maybe it was just the beginning. 2 weeks later, the first community meeting was held. The gymnasium of Copper Valley Elementary was packed. Townspeople who'd never attended a public meeting in their lives stood shoulder to shoulder with activists, journalists, and victims' families. The mood was tense, electric, on the edge of something. Dr. Webb opened the meeting. "We're here tonight to talk about healing. Not just individual healing, but community healing. What happened in this town wasn't the fault of one man or one family. It was a systemic failure, and fixing it is going to require all of us." Tank spoke next. He talked about the investigation, the scope of the contamination, the long road ahead. "The quarry site is being cleaned up, but that's going to take years. The water supply is being tested and treated, but some damage can't be undone. What we can do is make sure nothing like this ever happens again." Then D.A. Vance took the microphone. "We've secured a settlement from the Sterling estate. $150 million will be distributed to victims and their families. It's not enough, nothing could ever be enough, but it's a start." Gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd. "Additionally, we're establishing the Samuel Harper Memorial Fund, dedicated to environmental protection and whistleblower support. Because Samuel Harper gave his life trying to protect this community, and his sacrifice should never be forgotten." Grace began to cry. Lily reached over and took her mother's hand. Finally, Dr. Webb stepped forward again. "We'd like to invite Lily Harper to say a few words." Lily's stomach dropped. She hadn't expected this, hadn't prepared anything. But Sarah was pushing her wheelchair toward the front before she could protest, and suddenly she was facing the entire town of Copper Valley. Hundreds of eyes, all looking at her. "I don't really know what to say," Lily began, her voice small. "I'm just a kid. I didn't plan any of this. I just wanted to know the truth about my dad." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "My father was a good man. He worked hard. He loved my mom and me, and when he found out people were being hurt, he couldn't stay quiet. Even when it was dangerous. Even when it would have been easier to look the other way." Lily's voice strengthened. "He used to tell me that the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. He said that's why we have to speak up even when it's scary. Especially when it's scary." The gymnasium was utterly silent. "I'm not a hero," Lily continued. "I was terrified the whole time. I had nightmares. I wanted to give up. But I kept thinking about my dad and what he would want me to do, and I knew he'd want me to fight. Not because fighting is easy, but because some things are worth fighting for." She looked out at the crowd, at the faces of people who'd been poisoned, deceived, terrorized for decades. Copper Valley was sick for a long time. Not just from the chemicals, but from the fear, from the silence, from all the times people looked the other way, because it was easier than standing up. Lily's voice rang clear and strong. "But we're not silent anymore. We're not afraid anymore. And together, we're going to build something better. For my dad, for all the people we lost, and for every kid who's ever been told to shut up and take it." She paused. "Thank you." The applause started slowly and built to a roar. People were on their feet, cheering, crying, hugging each other. Grace was sobbing openly. Tank was grinning, and Sarah was pumping her fist in the air like they'd just won the Super Bowl. And Lily in her wheelchair at the front of the gymnasium finally understood what it meant to be a hero. It wasn't about being brave. It wasn't about being strong. It wasn't about having all the answers. It was about standing up anyway. Even when you were scared. Even when you were broken. Even when the whole world was telling you to sit down and shut up. Her father had taught her that. And now she was teaching it to everyone else. The meeting went on for 3 more hours. Victims told their stories. Officials made commitments. Plans were drawn up for memorials, cleanup efforts, support programs. By the time it ended, something had shifted in the air of Copper Valley. Hope. That was what it was. Hope, fragile and new, taking root in soil that had been poisoned for decades. As the crowd dispersed, Tank found Lily and Grace near the exit. "Hell of a speech, little one. I didn't know what I was going to say until I said it. Those are usually the best kind." Tank knelt down to her level. "I've been thinking about what comes next. For all of us." "What do you mean? The investigation is over. Sterling's in prison. The cleanup is underway. My job here is basically done." He paused. "But I'm not ready to leave. Not yet." Grace frowned. "Why not?" "Because there are other towns like Copper Valley. Other companies like Sterling Quarry. Other kids like Lily who need someone to fight for them." Tank's eyes gleamed. "I'm starting something new. A foundation. We're going to investigate environmental crimes, support whistleblowers, protect the people who try to do the right thing." "That sounds amazing," Lily said. "I want you to be part of it." Lily blinked. "Me? Not now. You're too young. But when you're older, when you're ready, I want you to help us. Be the voice for kids who don't have one. Tell your story so others know they're not alone." Lily thought about it. About all the kids out there who were going through what she'd gone through. Scared, alone, told to shut up and take it. "Yes," she said. "When I'm ready, I'll do it." Tank smiled. "That's my girl." He stood up, shook Grace's hand, and walked out into the night. Lily watched him go, feeling something settle in her chest. A purpose. A future. A reason to keep fighting. The war wasn't over. It would probably never be over. But for the first time, Lily felt like she was ready. On the drive home, Grace was quiet for a long time. Finally, she spoke. "Your father would be so proud of you, baby." "I know, Mama. Not just for what you did, for who you are." Grace wiped her eyes. "You have his heart, his courage, his stubborn refusal to accept injustice." "I have your heart too, Mama. You're the one who kept us going, who worked double shifts, who never gave up even when everything was falling apart. I had you to fight for. And I had you." Lily reached over and took her mother's hand. "We're a team, Mama. We always have been." Grace squeezed her hand tight. They drove the rest of the way in comfortable silence, mother and daughter survivors and warriors. At home, Lily wheeled herself to her bedroom window and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, her father was watching. She was sure of it. "We did it, Daddy," she whispered. "Not just the trial. All of it. The town is healing. People are finally talking about what happened. And I'm going to be okay. I really am." That a shooting star streaked across the sky. Lily smiled. "I love you too, Daddy." She turned away from the window and began to get ready for bed. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new struggles, new opportunities to fight and heal and grow. But tonight, for the first time in 2 years, Lily Harper fell asleep without fear and dreamed of gold. 1 year later, Lily Harper stood up from her wheelchair. Not metaphorically, not in a dream, actually stood up, her legs trembling beneath her, her hands gripping the parallel bars in the physical therapy room, her entire body shaking with effort. "That's it, Lily," Dr. Martinez encouraged. "Just a few more seconds." Lily's muscles screamed. Sweat poured down her face. Every instinct told her to collapse, to give up, to sink back into the chair that had been her prison for 3 years. She didn't. 5 more seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Lily's legs gave out. She fell backward into the wheelchair, gasping for breath, her heart pounding like a drum. But she was smiling. "I did it," she breathed. "I actually did it." "You did more than that." Dr. Martinez knelt beside her, eyes shining. "Lily, when you first came to me 6 months ago, the specialist said you'd never walk again. The nerve damage was too severe. The muscle atrophy was too advanced. They said we'd be lucky if you could stand for 10 seconds. How long was that? 37 seconds. Dr. Martinez laughed. "You just held yourself up for 37 seconds. Do you know what that means?" Lily shook her head, too exhausted to speak. "It means you're going to walk again. Maybe not today. Maybe not this month. But someday, Lily Harper, you're going to walk out of this room on your own 2 feet." For a moment, Lily couldn't process the words. 3 years of being told it was impossible. 3 years of doctors shaking their heads and offering sympathetic platitudes. 3 years of believing her legs would never work again. And now this. "Are you serious?" "I don't joke about miracles." Dr. Martinez squeezed her shoulder. "Your body is healing. Slowly, yes, but healing. The work you've put in, the determination you've shown, it's paying off." Lily burst into tears. Not sad tears. Not scared tears. The kind of tears that come when something you'd given up hope for suddenly becomes possible again. "I have to tell my mom." "She's in the waiting room. Go surprise her." Lily wheeled herself out of the therapy room, her arms still shaking, her heart still racing. Grace was sitting in her usual spot, flipping through a magazine, looking up expectantly when she heard the door. "How'd it go, baby?" Lily couldn't speak. She just held up her hand, fingers spread. "What's that mean? 37. 37 what? 37 seconds, Mama. I stood for 37 seconds. Grace's magazine hit the floor. Her hands flew to her mouth. "Baby. Dr. Martinez says I'm going to walk again." Grace was across the room in 3 steps, pulling Lily into her arms, both of them crying and laughing at the same time. "I knew it," Grace sobbed. "I always knew you were going to beat this. Mama, I'm going to walk. I'm actually going to walk." "Of course you are." Grace pulled back, cupping Lily's face in her hands. "You're Lily Harper. You can do anything." That night they celebrated with pizza and ice cream and a movie marathon that lasted until midnight. Tank and Wrench came over along with Sarah and her family. Even Madison Sterling showed up tentative and uncertain, but there. A year ago, having Madison in her house would have been unthinkable. Now she was almost like a friend. "I heard about the physical therapy," Madison said quietly, pulling Lily aside. "That's amazing." "Thanks." "I mean it." Madison's eyes were serious. "After everything that happened, after everything my family did to you, you're still fighting. You're still winning. I don't know how you do it." "I had help." "That's not it. I had help too. Therapists, counselors, support groups. But you're different." Madison shook her head. You have something inside you that most people don't have. This fire that won't go out no matter how hard people try to stamp it out. Everyone has that fire, Lily said. Most people just forget how to use it. Maybe. Madison hesitated. I wanted to tell you something. I've been accepted into a therapeutic boarding school in Vermont. I'm leaving next month. How do you feel about that? Scared? Relieved? Ready? Madison almost smiled. It's a fresh start. Nobody there knows who I am or what my family did. I can just be Madison. Not Madison Sterling, the monster's daughter. You're not your father, Madison. You never were. I was heading that way. If you hadn't stopped us, if the trial hadn't happened, I don't know who I would have become. Madison's voice cracked. You saved me too, Lily. I don't know if I ever said that. You didn't. Well, I'm saying it now. Madison stuck out her hand. Thank you. For everything. Lily shook it. Good luck in Vermont. Good luck with the walking. They looked at each other for a long moment. Two girls whose lives had been shaped by tragedy and violence and impossible choices. Two survivors finding their way forward. Then Madison walked away, and Lily rejoined the party. 3 months later, the Samuel Harper Memorial was unveiled. It stood at the entrance to what used to be Sterling Quarry, now renamed Harper Memorial Park. A bronze statue of Lily's father, standing tall, holding a book that represented his journal. Beneath it, an inscription. Samuel James Harper, 1978 to 2023. He spoke the truth, when silence would have been easier. He fought for justice when surrender would have been safer. He gave his life so others could live a hero for all time. The dedication ceremony drew hundreds of people. Townspeople, journalists, environmental activists, survivors from other communities who'd faced similar battles. Tank gave a speech. D.A. Vance gave a speech. Dr. Webb gave a speech. Then it was Lily's turn. She didn't wheel herself to the podium. She walked. It took her 3 minutes to cover 20 feet. She used a walker, her legs trembling with every step, sweat beading on her forehead. But she walked. Under her own power. In front of the entire world. The crowd was silent, except for a few gasps and quiet sobs. When she reached the podium, Lily turned to face them, breathing hard, her arms aching from the walker, her legs threatening to give out any second. My father used to carry me on his shoulders, she said, her voice echoing through the park. He'd spin me around until I was dizzy, laughing so hard I couldn't breathe. He used to say I could see the whole world from up there. She paused, steadying herself. When the accident happened, when I lost the use of my legs, I thought I'd lost that feeling forever. The feeling of being lifted up. The feeling of being able to see beyond the obstacles in front of me. Lily looked at the statue of her father. But I was wrong. Because my dad didn't just lift me up physically. He lifted me up in here. She touched her heart. He taught me that courage isn't about being strong. It's about being afraid and doing the right thing anyway. He taught me that one person can make a difference even against impossible odds. He taught me that the truth is worth fighting for, even if fighting costs you everything. Tears were streaming down her face now, but her voice remained steady. I'm standing here today, actually standing because of him. Not just because of the genes he gave me, or the love he showed me, but because of the example he set. He showed me what it means to be brave. He showed me what it means to be good. And he showed me that even when the darkness seems overwhelming, there's always a light worth reaching for. She turned to face the memorial directly. I miss you every day, Daddy. Every single day. But I'm not sad anymore, because I know you're with me in every step I take, in every battle I fight, in every person I help. Lily reached out and touched the bronze statue's hand. You gave me wings, Daddy, wings of steel, and I promise you I'm going to fly." The applause was deafening. Grace ran forward and caught Lily as her legs finally gave out, both of them crying and laughing as the crowd cheered. Tank stood in the back, tears streaming down his weathered face. Sarah was jumping up and down, screaming Lily's name. Even Wrench, the stoic Marine, who never showed emotion, was wiping his eyes. It was the proudest moment of Lily's life. But it wasn't the end. Not by a long shot. The foundation Tank had started was growing faster than anyone expected. They called it the Harper Justice Initiative, and within a year of its founding, it had investigated environmental crimes in 12 states, helped shut down 3 illegal dumping operations, and supported over 100 whistleblowers who'd been threatened or silenced. Lily was involved from the beginning, despite her age. She couldn't do field work or legal research, but she could do something just as important. She could tell stories. Tank brought her videos of kids from other towns, kids who'd lost parents, who'd gotten sick, who'd been told to shut up and accept injustice. Lily recorded video messages for them, sharing her own story, letting them know they weren't alone. "When I was at my lowest point," she'd say, looking directly into the camera, "I thought nobody cared. I thought the bad guys were going to win and there was nothing I could do about it. But I was wrong. Because there are people out there who will fight for you, who will stand with you, who will catch you when you fall." The videos went viral. First hundreds of views, then thousands, then millions. News outlets picked up the story. Politicians started asking questions. Corporations started feeling pressure. And Lily Harper, 9 years old, became the face of a movement. "You're famous," Sarah said one afternoon, scrolling through her phone. "Like, actually famous. There are fan accounts, memes. Someone even made a song about you." "That's weird." "That's amazing. You're changing the world, Lily." "I'm just talking to a camera." "You're giving people hope." Sarah looked at her seriously. "Do you know how many kids have reached out since your videos started going viral? Hundreds. Kids who were being bullied, kids whose parents were sick, kids who thought nobody would ever listen to them. What do they say? They say you helped them find their courage. They say watching you stand up made them want to stand up too." Sarah grabbed her hand. "You're not just talking to a camera, Lily. You're starting a revolution." Lily didn't know what to say. She'd never wanted to be famous. She'd just wanted justice for her father. But maybe this was what justice looked like. Not just punishing the bad guys, but inspiring the good ones. Maybe this was what her father had been fighting for all along. The first anniversary of the verdict arrived faster than Lily expected. Grace wanted to mark it quietly, just the two of them, maybe a visit to Samuel's grave. But Lily had other plans. "I want to see him," she said. Grace froze. "See who?" "Richard Sterling." The silence stretched for 10 seconds. 20. 30. "Absolutely not." "Mama." "No, Lily. That man murdered your father. He tried to have you killed. There is no universe in which I am letting you anywhere near him. I need closure." "You have closure. He's in prison for life." "That's not the same thing." Lily wheeled herself closer to her mother. "I've spent the last year processing what happened, working with Dr. Williams, talking through my feelings, and she says there's something I need to do before I can really move on." "What?" "I need to face him, look him in the eye, tell him what he took from me." Lily's voice was steady. "Not for him. For me." Grace stared at her daughter for a long moment. "You've already talked to Dr. Williams about this. We've been planning it for months. She thinks it could be really helpful. And if I say no, then I'll respect that. But I'm asking you to trust me, Mama. I've come so far. I've worked so hard. This is the last step." Grace closed her eyes. Lily could see the battle playing out on her mother's face, The fear, the protectiveness, the desperate desire to shield her daughter from any more pain. Finally, Grace opened her eyes. "I'm coming with you." "I wouldn't have it any other way." The prison was 3 hours from Copper Valley. Tank drove. Grace sat in the front passenger seat. Lily was in the back, her wheelchair folded beside her, her heart pounding harder with every mile. She'd prepared what she wanted to say, practiced it in front of the mirror, run through it with Dr. Williams a dozen times. But now that the moment was approaching, all the words seemed inadequate. How do you confront the man who murdered your father? What do you say to someone who tried to destroy your entire family? "You okay back there?" Tank asked, glancing in the rearview mirror. "No." "Good. Means you're taking it seriously." They arrived at the prison just after noon. The visitation process took another hour. Searches, paperwork, security checks. Finally, Lily was escorted into a small room with a table, 2 chairs, and a thick pane of bulletproof glass. On the other side of the glass sat Richard Sterling. He looked different, older, smaller somehow, like prison had shrunk him down to his true size. His silver hair was now gray and thinning. His expensive suit had been replaced by an orange jumpsuit. His perfectly manicured hands were rough and calloused. But his eyes were the same. Cold. Calculating. Empty. "Well, well." His voice came through a speaker, tinny and distant. "The little cripple comes to gloat." "I'm not here to gloat. Then why are you here?" Sterling leaned forward. "To tell me how much I hurt you, to cry about your dead daddy, to rub my nose in your victory. I'm here to tell you something you need to hear." Sterling laughed. It was an ugly sound. "Oh, this should be good." Lily took a deep breath. All those hours of preparation, all those conversations with Dr. Williams, all those nights lying awake, rehearsing this moment. And now it was here. "You took my father from me," she began. "You took my ability to walk not directly, but your son wouldn't have targeted me if you hadn't raised him to be a monster. You poisoned an entire town. You killed dozens of people. You destroyed families. You ruined lives." Sterling's smile flickered. "And you know what the worst part is. You don't even feel bad about it. You're sitting there behind that glass still convinced you're the victim, still telling yourself you did nothing wrong." "I built that town," Sterling growled. "Without me, Copper Valley would be nothing. Without you, Copper Valley would be alive." Lily's voice hardened. "You're going to die in here. Alone. Forgotten. The name Sterling will be synonymous with murder and corruption for generations. Everything you built, everything you cared about, it's all gone. And the only legacy you'll leave behind is a cautionary tale about what happens when evil goes unchecked." Sterling's face twisted with rage. "You think you've won, don't you? You think putting me in here changes anything? There are 1,000 Richard Sterlings out there. 1,000,000. You stopped one and 100 more will take my place." "Maybe," Lily smiled. "But I'll stop them too. And the ones after them. And the ones after that. Because that's what heroes do. We don't give up. We don't back down. We keep fighting no matter how many monsters we have to face." She leaned forward until her face was inches from the glass. "You tried to break me, Richard Sterling. You killed my father. You had your son try to murder me. You made my life a living hell for 2 years, and you know what?" She smiled wider. "I'm still here. I'm standing. I'm walking. I'm winning. And you're rotting in a cell, watching the world forget you ever existed." Sterling's face went pale with fury. "So thank you. Thank you for teaching me how strong I really am. Thank you for giving me a purpose. Thank you for showing me exactly what kind of person I never want to become." Lily stood up from her wheelchair, leaning on the table for support, but actually standing under her own power. "Look at me, Richard. Look at what you couldn't destroy." Sterling stared at her, speechless. "Goodbye, Richard. I hope your cell is comfortable. You're going to be in it for a very long time." She turned and walked away. Slowly, painfully. Each step a victory. Behind her, she heard Sterling screaming, calling for guards, demanding she be brought back. But Lily didn't turn around, didn't look back. She just kept walking. One step. Then another, toward the light, toward the future, toward everything Richard Sterling had tried to take from her. Tank and Grace were waiting outside, their faces anxious. "How'd it go?" Lily smiled. "It's over." "What do you mean?" "I mean it's really over. I said what I needed to say. I faced him. I let him see what he couldn't break." Lily took a deep breath of fresh air. "I'm free, Mama. For the first time since Daddy died, I'm actually free." Grace burst into tears and pulled her close. "I'm so proud of you, baby. So proud." "I know, Mama. I know." Tank stood back, watching them with something like wonder in his eyes. "You're something else, little one." "I'm my father's daughter." "You're more than that." Tank shook his head. "You're going to change the world, Lily Harper. Hell, you already have." 2 years later, Lily walked across the stage to receive her elementary school diploma. No wheelchair. No walker. Just her own 2 feet carrying her toward a future that once seemed impossible. The auditorium erupted in applause. Grace was crying. Tank was cheering. Sarah was screaming her name. Even Dr. Martinez was there, beaming with pride. Lily took the diploma from Dr. Webb's hands turned to face the crowd and smiled. "My father used to say that the only limit to what we can achieve is the limit we place on ourselves," she said into the microphone. "For a long time, I believed I was limited. By my wheelchair, by my grief, by the people who wanted to silence me." She paused, looking out at the faces of everyone who'd supported her. "But I was wrong, because limits aren't real. They're just stories we tell ourselves when we're afraid. And when we stop being afraid, when we start believing in ourselves, those limits disappear." She held up her diploma. "This isn't just a piece of paper. It's proof. Proof that a little girl in a wheelchair can stand up to murderers and win. Proof that justice is possible when good people refuse to stay silent. Proof that no matter how dark things get, there's always a light worth reaching for." Lily looked directly at the camera that was live streaming the ceremony to millions of viewers around the world. "To everyone watching this, everyone who's been told they can't, they won't, they shouldn't, I have a message for you. You are stronger than you know. You are braver than you feel. And you are never ever alone." She smiled. "My name is Lily Harper. I'm 11 years old, and I'm just getting started." The applause was deafening. But Lily wasn't listening. She was looking up at the sky, where a single shaft of sunlight had broken through the clouds, illuminating her father's face on the banner that hung above the stage. "We did it, Daddy," she whispered. "We really did it." And somewhere beyond the clouds, beyond the pain, beyond the limits of what anyone thought possible, Samuel Harper smiled down at his daughter. The girl who had fallen. The girl who had risen. The girl who had learned to fly. That evening, the Harper family, Grace, Lily, and Tank, who had become family in every way that mattered, gathered on the porch of their new house. It was bigger than the old one paid for by the settlement located on a hill overlooking Copper Valley. From here they could see the whole town, the rebuilt school, the memorial park, the winding road that led to a future brighter than anyone had dared to imagine. "What are you thinking about?" Grace asked. everything. Lily watched the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and crimson. How much has changed, how far we've come, how different things could have been. Any regrets? Just one. Lily turned to look at her mother. I wish Daddy could have seen it. All of it. Grace put her arm around her daughter. He did see it, baby. Every step of the way. You really believe that? I know it. Grace kissed the top of her head. Fathers never really leave. They just watch from somewhere we can't see. Lily leaned into her mother's embrace, watching the sun sink below the horizon. 3 years ago, she'd been a broken girl in a wheelchair, tormented by bullies, grieving a father she thought she'd never see justice for. Now she was a walking miracle, a viral sensation, a symbol of hope for millions of people around the world. But none of that mattered as much as this moment. Here on this porch, with the people she loved watching the world turn toward darkness, and knowing that the light would always return. I'm going to keep fighting, she said quietly. For kids like me, for families like ours, for everyone who's ever been told they don't matter. I know you will, baby. It's going to be hard. The hard things are always worth doing. Lily smiled. Daddy used to say that. Where do you think I learned it? They sat in comfortable silence as the stars came out one by one, filling the sky with tiny points of light. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new battles, new opportunities to make a difference. But tonight, Lily Harper was at peace. She had walked through fire and emerged stronger. She had faced monsters and emerged victorious. She had learned that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the decision to act despite the fear. And she had discovered something that Richard Sterling, with all his money and power and cruelty, would never understand. The strongest weapon in the world isn't money. It isn't power. It isn't violence. It's a voice that refuses to be silenced. It's a heart that refuses to stop beating. It's a spirit that refuses to be broken. Lily Harper had all three. And with them, she was going to change the world. Not someday, not eventually, now. Because heroes don't wait for permission. They don't wait for the perfect moment. They don't wait for someone else to save the day. Heroes stand up. Heroes speak out. Heroes fight. And Lily Harper was a hero. She had earned her wings. Wings of steel. And nothing, not bullies, not murderers, not all the darkness in the world would ever clip them again. This wasn't the end of Lily's story. It was just the beginning. But it was a beginning built on truth, forged in fire, and strengthened by love. A beginning that would echo through generations. A beginning that proved once and for all that even the smallest voice can shake the world. Lily Harper looked up at the stars one last time. "Thank you, Daddy," she whispered. Then she stood up, walked inside, and got ready for whatever came next. Because Lily Harper didn't just survive. She soared. The end. If Lily's courage inspired you, please subscribe and share this story. And remember, no matter how dark things seem, there's always a light worth reaching for. You just have to be brave enough to find it. Which moment in Lily's journey touched you the most? Drop a comment below and let us know which city you're watching from. We read every single one. Until next time, stay brave, stay strong, and never stop fighting for what's right.